For Dad's 60th, we made a video montage from old home movies. It was supposed to be the perfect gift, 30 years of gambling memories set to his favorite songs. My brother Daniel handled the technical stuff while I sorted through boxes of old VHS tapes, high-8 cassettes, and even some ancient film reels Mom had digitized years ago. This is going to make him cry, I told my boyfriend Nathan as we previewed the rough cut in Daniel's living room. Look at baby Daniel taking his first steps. Nathan had his arm around me, watching politely. He'd only been dating me for 8 months, but he'd already sat through enough family stories to recognize most of the faces flickering across the screen. Mom in her 80s perm. Dad with actual hair. Daniel going through his unfortunate bowl cut phase. We were about halfway through when Nathan shifted beside me. His arm tensed. "Pause it," he said suddenly. Daniel hit the spacebar. "What's wrong?" "Audio mess up." "No, Nathan looked at me, then back at the screen. "Run it back like 2 minutes." Daniel shrugged and scrubbed backward. Birthday parties flashed by in reverse. Christmas mornings, beach vacations, first days of school. "There," Nathan said. "Start there and play at normal speed." It was a section from the early 90s, Daniel's 5th birthday party. The camera panned across a backyard full of kids attacking a piñata. Mom bringing out the cake. Dad lighting candles. Daniel making a wish. "Okay," Daniel asked. "It's just my birthday." "Keep playing," Nathan said quietly. More footage. Halloween 1993, Daniel as Batman. Thanksgiving at Grandma's house. Christmas morning, Daniel opening a bike. New Year's Eve with the cousins. Easter egg hunt. Daniel's kindergarten graduation. Nathan paused it again. "Where's Lillian?" "What do you mean?" I laughed. "I'm probably just off camera. I was shy as a kid." "No, look." He grabbed the laptop and started scrolling through the timeline. This is what 6 years of footage so far. Every holiday, every birthday, every milestone. "Where are you?" Daniel and I exchanged glances. "I'm sure I'm in there somewhere. Keep playing." But as we watched, a cold feeling crept up my spine. 1994, 1995, 1996. Daniel learning to ride a bike. Daniel's first day of school. Daniel at soccer practice. Mom and Dad and Daniel at Disneyland. At the Grand Canyon. At Cousin Rebecca's wedding. No Lillian? Not one frame. "Maybe I was sick a lot," I said weakly. Nathan pulled up the timeline and started jumping to random spots. His face was getting darker with each click. "This is 30 years of footage. Thousands of hours. You're not in any of it." "That's impossible." Daniel took the laptop back. "Let me check the stuff from when we were teenagers." But it was the same. Daniel's high school graduation, family barbecues, holiday dinners, even recent stuff. Mom's retirement party last year, Daniel's engagement celebration. The camera would pan across rooms I knew I'd been in, past spots where I clearly remembered standing, but I was never there. Or more accurately, the camera always seemed to turn away just before it would have caught me. "This is weird," Daniel admitted. "You were definitely at my graduation. You gave that speech about me being your annoying little brother." "Then why isn't she in the video?" Nathan asked. We sat in silence, staring at the frozen frame of a Christmas morning from 2010. I remembered that morning. I'd gotten Daniel a signed copy of his favorite book. We'd stayed up until 3 a.m. playing video games. But in the footage, it was just him, Mom, and Dad around the tree. Nathan suddenly grabbed the laptop again. "Wait, look at this." He paused on a shot of the living room from 1998. "See the mantle. Count the stockings." 4 stockings. Mom, Dad, Daniel, and 1 more. "That's mine," I said. "Stowe. Look at the name." I leaned in, squinting at the grainy footage. The stocking was there, but where my name should have been embroidered, there was just a blur, like someone had smudged it out. Nathan started clicking through rapidly, finding other shots. The refrigerator covered in report cards. Daniel's were clear, but there were others where the names were mysteriously obscured. A family height chart on a doorframe. Daniel's measurements marked clearly, but another set of marks with no name. Birthday calendars on the wall with certain dates circled but unlabeled. "This isn't accidental," Nathan said. "Someone edited you out." "That's insane," Daniel said, but his voice was uncertain. "Why would anyone do that?" I stood up, my legs shaky. I need to go home, to Mom and Dad's. Lil, wait. But I was already grabbing my keys. Nathan followed me to the car. I'm coming with you, he said. It wasn't a question. The drive to my parents' house took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of my mind racing through every family memory, wondering what else had been edited, wondering why. Nathan held my hand the whole way, his thumb rubbing circles on my palm. They were in the living room watching TV when we walked in. Mom looked up with a smile that faltered when she saw my face. Lillian? What's wrong, honey? The video montage for Dad's birthday, I said. I'm not in it. Dad muted the TV. What do you mean? 30 years of home movies and I'm not in a single frame. Not one. They exchanged a look. Just a flicker, but I caught it. That same look they'd shared when I was 16 and asked why I didn't look like anyone else in the family. When I was 22 and wondered why there were no photos of Mom pregnant with me. When I was 25 and needed my birth certificate for my passport and they'd taken 3 weeks to find it. That can't be right, Mom said carefully. Maybe Daniel missed some tapes. Someone edited me out, I interrupted. Deliberately. Blurred my name on stockings, avoided filming me. Why? The silence stretched out like a living thing. Nathan squeezed my hand. Finally, Dad spoke. We should have told you years ago. My heart stopped. Told me what? Mom was crying now, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. You were never supposed to find out this way. Find out what? Dad stood, walked to their antique secretary desk, and pulled out a manila envelope from a locked drawer. His hands were shaking as he handed it to me. Inside were newspaper clippings, photos, legal documents. The first headline made my knees buckle. Local Hainaya killed in Hawesi fire. Ainafantdagcher missing. The photo showed a burned house. Below it, another photo. A young couple holding a baby. The woman looked exactly like me. Her name was Lillian too, Mom whispered. Your birth mother? She was my best friend since college. I sank onto the couch, Nathan beside me, as they told me everything. My birth parents, Lillian and Michael Brennan, had died in a house fire when I was 6 months old. Arson, the investigators said. Someone had deliberately set their house ablaze. I'd been found in the backyard, hidden in the garden shed, presumably placed there by my birth mother when she realized they couldn't escape. We took you in immediately, Dad said. We were your godparents. It's what Lillian would have wanted. But why hide it? My voice was barely a whisper. Mom twisted her hands. The fire, it wasn't random. Mike had testified against some very dangerous people. Drug trafficking case. He was a prosecutor, and they killed him, I finished. And my mother. The police said you might still be in danger, Dad continued. These people, they didn't leave loose ends. If they knew Mike and Lillian had a daughter who survived. So you hid me, Nathan said, understanding dawning in his voice. In plain sight. Mom nodded. We legally adopted you, but we kept it quiet. Moved states. Changed our last names. Let everyone believe you died in the fire too. And we made sure there was no visual record of you that could be traced. Every photo, every video, Dad said. We couldn't risk someone recognizing you, seeing Lillian's face in yours. The older you got, the more you looked like her, and the more careful we had to be. I was staring at the photo of my birth parents. The woman could have been my twin. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same crooked smile I saw in the mirror every day. But it's been 30 years, I said, surely. 2 years ago, someone came around asking questions. Mom interrupted. Said they were writing a book about cold cases. Wanted to know about the Brennan fire. Mentioned they'd heard rumors the baby had survived. We panicked, Dad admitted. Started destroying even more photos, being more careful about social media. We thought about telling you then, but you didn't. The anger was starting to build. You let me spend my whole life wondering why I felt like a ghost in my own family. Why there were no pictures of me as a baby. Why you always got weird when I asked questions. We were protecting you, Mom cried. From what? From knowing who I am. From ending up like them, Dad's voice cracked. Do you think a day goes by that we don't think about that night? Our best friends murdered while their baby slept in the shed. We couldn't lose you too. I looked at more photos in the envelope. My birth parents' wedding. Their college graduation. Photos of them with my adoptive parents, all four of them young and smiling. And at the bottom, a singed baby blanket in an evidence bag. This was wrapped around you when they found you, Mom said softly. Your birth mother's last act was saving you. Nathan spoke up. The people who did this, were they ever caught? Dad shook his head. The main suspect died in prison 5 years later. Different charges. But he had associates, family. We could never be sure you were safe. So my whole life has been witness protection without me knowing it. We just wanted you to be normal, Mom said. To have a childhood without fear. Normal? I laughed bitterly. I spent my childhood thinking I was invisible, that I didn't matter enough to be in family photos. Do you have any idea what that does to a kid? Daniel's voice came from the doorway. We all turned. He was standing there, laptop under his arm, face pale. You knew? I asked him. He shook his head. Not all of it. I knew you were adopted. They told me when I was 10, made me promise never to tell. But I didn't know about. He gestured helplessly at the envelope. We have videos, Mom said suddenly. Real ones. Of you. We kept them separate. Hidden. She disappeared upstairs and came back with a small fireproof safe. Inside were dozens of DVDs, each labeled with dates and code. She put one in the player. And there I was. Baby me taking first steps. Toddler me finger painting. Young me losing a tooth. All the moments I thought had been lost or never recorded. They'd filmed everything, just kept it locked away. We watch these sometimes, Dad said quietly, after you'd gone to bed. To remember. I was crying now. Angry tears, sad tears, confused tears. Nathan pulled me close. The person who came asking questions, he said. Did they give you a name? Mom nodded. Derek Volkov. Said he was a true crime writer. Nathan pulled out his phone, typing quickly. His face went white. There's no true crime writer by that name. But there is a Derek Volkov who was released from federal prison 3 years ago, connected to the Mikhailov crime family. The same family my birth father had testified against. The room went cold. They're still looking, I whispered. After 30 years, they're still looking for me. We don't have that for certain, Dad said, but his voice was unconvincing. Yes, we do. I stood up, pacing. Someone came here asking about the baby who supposedly died 2 years ago, right when you started being even more careful. We increased security, Mom said. Cameras, alarm system upgrades. And never told me why. The anger exploded out of me. I'm 30 years old. I deserve to know I might be in danger. I deserve to know who I really am. You're our daughter, Dad said firmly. That's who you are. I'm also Lillian and Michael Brennan's daughter, and someone murdered them for it. We sat in silence, the weight of 30 years of secrets crushing down on us. On the TV, frozen on the screen, was toddler me, mid-laugh, reaching for the camera. A moment of joy trapped in amber, hidden away like everything else. What do I do now? I asked finally. We keep you safe, Mom said, like we always have. By hiding? By pretending I don't exist. If that's what it takes, Dad said. Nathan stood up. No, respectfully, Mr. and Mrs. Conway, but no. Lillian's lived in the shadows for 30 years because of crimes she didn't commit, testimony she didn't give. That's not living. You don't understand the danger. Then help me understand, Nathan said. Because from where I'm standing, the only crime here is that Lillian's had to live half a life because you were too scared to trust her with the truth. I looked at him gratefully, then turned back to my parents. I need time to process this. All of it. Lillian. And I need those videos. The real ones. I deserve to have my memories, even if no one else can see them. Mom nodded, tears still streaming. Of course. They're yours. They were always yours. I gathered the DVDs, the photos, the newspaper clippings, my history hidden away in a fireproof safe like evidence of a crime, which I suppose it was. As we left, Daniel caught my arm. I'm sorry for all the times I complained about being the only one in photos. I didn't know. Neither did I said. That's the point. Nathan drove me home in silence. Back at my apartment, I spread everything out on the coffee table. 30 years of invisible life staring back at me. What are you thinking? Nathan asked. I'm thinking about that night, my birth parents realizing they were trapped. making the choice to hide me in the shed instead of trying to run with me. They knew, didn't they? That they wouldn't make it, but they made sure I would. They saved you. And then my adoptive parents hid me. For 30 years, I picked up a photo of my birth mother. We had the same hands. I understand why they did it. I do, but understanding isn't the same as forgiving. They stole my history, my identity, my right to choose how to live with this threat. I looked at him. Am I wrong to be angry? No, he said simply. You're human. That night, I watched every hidden video. Hours of footage of a childhood I remembered but had never seen proof of. It was beautiful and heartbreaking and infuriating all at once. All those moments locked away. All those memories treated like contraband. The next morning, I made a decision. I called my parents and told them I was hiring a private investigator, a real one, to look into Derek Volkov and anyone else who might still be interested in a 30-year-old murder. Lillian, please, Mom begged. Don't draw attention. I've been invisible my whole life, I said. I'm done hiding from ghosts. It took 3 months, but the investigator found what we needed. Derek Volkov was indeed connected to the Mikhailov family, but he'd been freelancing, hoping to curry favor by tying up old loose ends. He died 2 months ago in a car accident. No one else was looking for me. The Mikhailovs had bigger problems these days than a decades-old vendetta against a prosecutor's baby. The threat, such as it was, had passed. I confronted my parents with this information. They cried, apologized, admitted they let their fear override their judgment. We just loved you so much, Mom said. The thought of losing you like we lost them. I know, I said. And I did know, but knowing didn't erase 30 years of being edited out of my own life. I'm in therapy now, working through it all. The identity issues, the trust problems, the strange grief of mourning parents I never knew while reconciling with parents who knew me too well to let me be known. Nathan's been my rock through it all. He proposed last month, actually. Said he wanted to make sure I was in every frame of our life together. No more hiding. No more editing. Just visible, documented love. Daniel's redoing the video montage for Dad's birthday. This time, I'm in it. Every birthday, every Christmas, every mundane Tuesday afternoon. He's even adding some of the hidden footage with my permission. Because I exist. I existed then, even when they couldn't show it, and I exist now. My parents and I are slowly rebuilding. They're learning to see me as an adult who can handle hard truths. I'm learning to see them as flawed humans who made impossible choices out of love and fear. And somewhere in heaven or wherever they are, I hope Lillian and Michael Brennan know their daughter survived. Not just the fire, but the aftermath. The hiding. The lies meant to protect. The truth finally coming to light. I kept my name Lillian, both in honor of my birth mother and because it's who I've always been. But I added something to my apartment, a photo of them, my first parents, out in the open on the mantle where anyone can see. Because I'm done being invisible. Done being edited out for my own protection. Done living in the shadows of someone else's crime. They saved me that night, hiding me in a garden shed. My adoptive parents saved me too, in their way, hiding me in plain sight. But now I'm saving myself, by being seen.
Please, Mom, don't do this. I was 22, standing in the kitchen where Dad used to make pancakes every Sunday, watching my mother pack his coffee mugs into a cardboard box labelled Goodwill in her sharp handwriting. Caroline, honey, you have to understand, Riker needs this more than we do. She didn't even look up from the box. He's going through such a hard time with the divorce, and that condo he's buying needs work. The down payment alone. What about me? The words came out smaller than I intended. Where am I supposed to go? That's when she finally looked at me. Not with love or concern, but with that tired expression she'd perfected over the years. The one that said I was being dramatic, selfish, unreasonable. You're young, you'll figure it out. Riker has 3 kids to think about. 3 kids he barely saw. 3 kids from a marriage he'd destroyed by sleeping with his wife's sister. But I didn't say that. I'd learned by then that defending myself against Riker was like trying to hold water in my hands. This house is all I have left of Dad. Don't be so dramatic. It's just a house. Just a house, the place where Dad taught me to change a tyre in the garage, where he'd sit with me on the front porch during thunderstorms because I was scared of the lightning, where his workshop in the basement still smelled like sawdust and old spice, even 2 years after the heart attack took him. I can get a job. I can help with the mortgage payments. Please. She sealed the box with packing tape, the sound sharp and final. The decision's made, Caroline. The realtor thinks we can get $250 for it, maybe more. Riker's already put an offer on that condo. I stood there watching her pack away our life, piece by piece, and something inside me went cold. Not sad cold, not angry cold, just empty. My name is Caroline, and that was the day I learned that some people will throw you away to save someone who's already drowning. 10 years later, I'm sitting in that same kitchen, but everything's different now. The walls are painted a warm cream instead of the faded yellow Mom never bothered to update. New granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors that gleam under the pendant lights I had installed last month. I bought it back, every single inch of it. The previous owners had let it fall apart, peeling paint, broken fixtures, a leak in the basement that warped half the foundation. It took me 3 years of negotiations, cash offers, and patience I didn't know I had, but I got it. I paid for it with money I saved, living in Skylar's spare bedroom, eating ramen for dinner, working 2 jobs and taking night classes. Money I made from the business I built from nothing while my family thought I'd disappeared into some tragic spiral of my own making. They have no idea I own this place, no idea I've been watching the neighbourhood Facebook group seeing Mom's comments about how lovely it looks now that someone's finally taking care of it properly. The irony tastes better than wine. I'm signing the final deed transfer papers when my phone buzzes. A voicemail from a number I haven't seen in 8 years but still recognise immediately. Caroline, honey, it's Mom. Her voice sounds older, more fragile. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I really need to speak with you. Something's happened with Riker and we need a place to stay, just for a little while. I got your number from Skylar. I hope that's okay. Please call me back. It's important. I set the phone down and look around my kitchen. My house, my sanctuary that I built from the ashes of their betrayal. The same house they sold to fund my brother's 3rd divorce and condo renovation. The same house where Mom told me I'd figure it out while packing away the last pieces of my childhood. I pour myself a glass of wine, a nice Pinot Noir, not the cheap stuff I used to buy, and listen to the message again. We need a place to stay. I almost laugh. Almost. Instead, I pick up my phone and dial her back. It rings twice before she answers, breathless and desperate. Caroline, oh, thank God, I wasn't sure you'd call back. Hi, Mom, I got your message. Yes, well, like I said, we're in a bit of a situation here, and I was hoping... Come over tomorrow, 2:00, we can talk. Oh, wonderful! Where should we meet? Do you have an apartment now, or... I'll text you the address. I hang up before she can ask more questions, then type out the address of our old house. The house she sold, the house I now own. Tomorrow should be interesting. I'm sitting on the front porch at 1:55 p.m, watching a beat-up Honda Civic crawl down the street like it's running on fumes and prayers. The car I remember Mom driving was a silver Lexus, Dad's last gift to her before the heart attack. This thing looks like it's held together with duct tape and desperation. The car stops in front of my house. My house. The irony still hits like a shot of whiskey. Mom gets out first, moving slower than I remember. Her hair is more grey than brown now, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She's wearing a faded sweater that's seen better decades and jeans with a hole in the knee. Not the put-together woman who used to host dinner parties and judge my life choices. Riker unfolds himself from the passenger seat like he's in pain. He's thinner, hollow-cheeked, with the kind of pallor that screams, "I've been living off gas station coffee and regret." His once perfect smile is nowhere to be found. They both have suitcases, 2 each. Mum starts walking toward the house, then stops dead when she sees the mailbox. Her mouth falls open as she reads the name painted in neat black letters. C. Walton. The suitcase slips from her hand and hits the sidewalk with a thud. Caroline, her voice is barely a whisper. I stand up slowly, smoothing down my dress. It's a nice dress, navy blue, professional, the kind I wear to client meetings now. The kind I could never afford when I was sleeping on Skylar's couch. Hi, Mum. Riker. Riker's staring at the mailbox like it might bite him. What the hell is this? Language, Riker. I walk down the porch steps, taking my time. This is my house, the house you're standing in front of. Your house? Mom's voice cracks. But when did you? I bought it 3 months ago. Paid cash. The silence stretches between us like a chasm. Mum looks like she might faint. Riker looks like he might run. You bought our house, Mum says finally. My house, I correct. You sold your house 10 years ago, remember? To help Riker with his condo. Riker kicks at a pebble on the sidewalk. Look, Caroline, if this is some kind of joke... Do I look like I'm joking? He doesn't answer. Smart man. Mum picks up her suitcase with shaking hands. I don't understand. How could you afford... Hard work, something you might remember if you think back far enough. Caroline, please. Her eyes fill with tears. I know we haven't talked in a while, but you're still my daughter. We're family. Are we? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Mum wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her mascara. We have nowhere else to go, she whispers. I study them both. Mum with her desperate eyes and trembling hands, Riker with his jaw clenched, probably calculating how quickly he can charm his way out of this situation. What happened to the condo? Riker's face darkens. It's complicated. I have time. The divorce got messy, Mom says quickly. Natasha took everything, the condo, the car, even his tools. She froze all the accounts. We've been staying in a motel for 3 weeks, but you ran out of money. Caroline, honey, I know this is awkward, but if we could just stay here for a few days. In my house. Yes, in your house, just until we get back on our feet. I look at the house behind me. The house where Dad used to read me bedtime stories, where I learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where Mom told me I'd have to figure it out, while she packed away my childhood to fund my brother's mistakes. You can stay, I say finally. Mum's face lights up like Christmas morning. Oh, Caroline, thank you. I knew you'd... But there are rules. The light in her eyes dims slightly. Rules? This is my house, my rules. You don't like them, there's a Motel 6 on Highway 9. Riker steps forward. Now, wait just a damn minute. Rule number 1, no swearing in my house. He closes his mouth so fast, I hear his teeth click. Rule number 2, you both contribute. Chores, cooking, cleaning. I'll make a schedule. Caroline, we're not children, Mom protests. Then don't act like them. I pull out my phone and open the Notes app. Rule number 3, rent is $50 a week, each, cash only, due every Sunday. $50? Riker's voice goes up an octave. We don't have... Then you better find jobs. Rule number 4, no guests without my permission. Rule number 5, curfew is 11 p.m. on weeknights, midnight on weekends. This is insane, Riker mutters. Rule number 6, my house, my TV, my music, my food, unless you buy your own. Rule number 7, any damage, you pay for it. Mom is crying again, but quietly now. This feels so cruel, Caroline. Does it? I tilt my head, because I remember someone telling me I'd figure it out when I had nowhere to go. I remember someone choosing their son's 3rd divorce over their daughter's basic stability. That's not fair. Fair? I laugh, and it sounds sharp even to my own ears. Mum, I slept on a couch for 2 years because you sold the only home I'd ever known. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner because I couldn't afford groceries. Don't talk to me about fare. The silence stretches again. A car drives by and I wave at Mrs. Patterson from down the street. She waves back, probably wondering who these people are with the suitcases. "So," I say, slipping my phone back into my pocket, "do you want to come inside and talk about the rules, or should I help you load those suitcases back into your car?" Mum looks at Riker. Riker looks at the ground. "We'll take the room," Mum says quietly. "Rooms," I correct. "You're not married. You get separate bedrooms." I turn and walk back up the porch steps, not bothering to see if they follow. They do. Inside, I hand them each a printed sheet of paper. Mum holds it like it might explode. "House rules," I explain, settling into Dad's old armchair. I had it reupholstered in navy leather, but it still feels like him. "Read them carefully." Riker scans the page, his face getting redder with each line. "This is ridiculous. No alcohol on the premises. Lights out by midnight. What are we, teenagers?" "You're acting like them." "Caroline, honey," Mom interrupts, still clutching the paper. "Some of these seem a bit extreme. Like this one about job applications. 5 per day, each. But I'm 59 years old. Who's going to hire me? McDonald's is always hiring. So is Walmart. Target's pretty good about older workers." Mom's face crumples. "You want me to work at McDonald's?" "I want you to work somewhere. Anywhere. Because rent is due every Sunday and I'm not running a charity." Riker throws the paper on my coffee table. "This is insane. We're family." Family doesn't sell your childhood home to fund their golden child's 3rd divorce. That was 10 years ago. And here we are. I stand up and walk to the kitchen, pulling out a laminated chore chart from the drawer. "Mum, you get bathrooms and laundry. Riker, you get kitchen duty and trash. I've already assigned days." "I'm not doing dishes," Riker says flatly. "Then you're not eating my food." "Your food!" I open the refrigerator and point to the contents. "My groceries, my electricity keeping them cold, my house storing them. You want to eat, you contribute." Mum joins us in the kitchen, running her fingers along the granite countertop. "This is beautiful, Caroline, really beautiful. Your father would have loved these updates." Don't what? "Don't bring up Dad. You lost the right to use his memory as emotional manipulation when you sold his house." She flinches like I slapped her. Riker leans against the counter, trying to look casual. "Look, sis, I know we got off on the wrong foot here, but maybe we can work something out. I've got some business deals in the works." "No. You didn't even hear what I was going to say." "I don't need to. The answer is no to whatever scheme you're cooking up." "It's not a scheme. It's a legitimate investment opportunity. Like the condo was?" His jaw tightens. "That wasn't my fault. Natasha went crazy during the divorce. She took things that were legally mine." "Were they, though?" "What's that supposed to mean?" I don't answer. Instead, I pull out 2 keys from the junk drawer. "Mum, you get the guest room upstairs. Riker, you get the basement bedroom." "The basement?" He looks horrified. "That's not even a real bedroom. It has a bed, a dresser, and a window. It's a bedroom." "It's a basement. It's free housing. Take it or leave it." Mum takes her key with shaking hands. "Caroline, I understand you're angry. I'm not angry, Mom. Angry would be emotional. This is business." "Business? You need housing. I have housing. You pay rent, follow rules, contribute to the household. It's a simple transaction. But we're not strangers. We're your family." "My family sold my home and left me sleeping on a couch for 2 years. Riker pushes off from the counter. "You know what? Fine. I'll play your little game for now. But this isn't over." "Actually, it is. These aren't negotiations, Riker. These are the terms." He storms toward the basement door, then stops. "Where's the TV down there?" "There isn't one." "What am I supposed to do?" "Read a book, journal, reflect on your life choices. I don't really care." He disappears down the basement stairs, his footsteps heavy on each step. Mum stands in the kitchen looking lost. I should probably unpack, she says quietly. Probably. She starts toward the stairs, then turns back. Caroline, I know you don't want to hear this, but I really am sorry about the house, about everything. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught needing help? She doesn't answer. That night, I'm reading in the living room when I hear the front door creak open. It's 11:47 p.m. I check my phone and wait. Footsteps on the porch. The door closes softly like someone's trying not to wake anyone. I give it 10 minutes, then walk to the basement door. I can smell the alcohol from the top of the stairs. The next morning I'm installing a keypad lock on the front door when Mom comes down for coffee. What's that for? Security upgrade. But we don't have the code. You will, when you earn it. Riker stumbles upstairs 20 minutes later, looking like death warmed over. He stops when he sees the lock. What the hell is that? Language. Caroline, this is going too far. Is it because someone decided to go bar hopping last night instead of following house rules? His face goes pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Riker, you smell like a distillery and there's a receipt from Murphy's Tavern sticking out of your pocket. He looks down, realizes his mistake, and shoves the receipt deeper into his pocket. The code changes weekly, I continue. You get it when you prove you can follow the rules. Until then, you knock and wait for me to let you in. This is insane. This is consequences. Mum sets down her coffee mug with shaking hands. Caroline, please, he made a mistake. He made a choice. Actions have consequences. I learned that lesson 10 years ago. I finish programming the lock and test it twice. The beeping sound echoes through the house like a timer counting down to something inevitable. Breakfast is in 20 minutes, I announce. Whoever's cooking today better get started. I walk back to my bedroom, leaving them standing in the hallway, staring at the lock that now controls their access to the only shelter they have left. From my room, I hear Mom whisper, "What have we done?" But Riker doesn't answer. 3 days later, I'm coming back from my morning run when I hear Mom's voice drifting through her bedroom window. I know, but she's being completely unreasonable, making us pay rent, giving us chores like we're children, and the lock on the front door, it's like living in a prison. I stop stretching and move closer to the house. No, you don't understand. She's changed. She's cold, calculating. I think she might be having some kind of mental breakdown. My blood turns to ice. I'm worried about her, honestly. This isn't the daughter I raised. There's something wrong with her. I walk through the front door, not bothering to be quiet. Mum's voice cuts off abruptly upstairs. "Mum!" I call out. "Can you come down here, please?" Footsteps across the floor, a door closing, more footsteps on the stairs. She appears in the living room wearing her fake smile, the one she used to put on for church ladies and nosy neighbours. "Hi, honey, how was your run? Who were you talking to?" "What do you mean?" "On the phone, just now." Her smile falters. "Oh, that was just a friend from my old book club." "Which friend?" "You don't know her." "Try me." "Caroline, I don't understand why you're interrogating me." I cross my arms. "Because I heard you telling someone I'm mentally unstable." The colour drains from her face. "I never said that. You said I was having a mental breakdown, that something's wrong with me. I was just concerned." "About what, exactly?" "About this." She gestures around the room. "About the way you're treating us. The rules, the rent, the lock. It's not normal, Caroline. What's not normal is a mother selling her daughter's childhood home to fund her son's 3rd divorce. That's not what happened, isn't it?" She sits down heavily on the couch. "Riker was in a bad place. He needed help. And I didn't. You were young. You had your whole life ahead of you. I was homeless, Mum. I slept on a couch for 2 years. You had Skylar. I had a friend who took pity on me because my own mother threw me away." Tears start rolling down her cheeks. "I didn't throw you away." "Then what would you call it?" Before she can answer, there's a knock at the door. I check the people and see a woman in her 50s with silver hair and a concerned expression. "Yolanda," I say, opening the door. "How are you?" Yolanda has lived next door since I was 12. She used to bring Dad homemade cookies when he was working in the garage. "Caroline, honey, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I saw your mother through the window yesterday and wanted to say hello." "Of course. Come in." Mum wipes her eyes quickly and stands up. "Yolanda, how nice to see you." "Tamara," Yolanda's voice is polite but cool. "I was surprised to see you here. We're just visiting Caroline for a while." "Visiting?" Yolanda nods slowly. "That's interesting." I offer Yolanda coffee, which she accepts. We sit in the living room, the tension thick enough to cut. "You've done beautiful work with the house, Caroline," Yolanda says. "Your father would be so proud." "Thank you. He always said this house would come back to you someday, even after—" She glances at Mom. "Well, even after it was sold," Mom shifts uncomfortably. "We did what we thought was best at the time." "Did you?" Yolanda's eyebrows raise. "Because I remember you trying to sell it even before Riker's divorce was final." The coffee mug freezes halfway to my lips. "What?" "Oh, yes," Yolanda continues, seemingly oblivious to the bomb she just dropped. "You had that realtor out here, what was it, 6 months before Riker even filed the papers. I remember because I asked if everything was okay, and you said you were just exploring options." Mum's face has gone white. "Yolanda, I think you're confused." "Am I?" "Because I have a very good memory for these things, especially when they involve this house. Your father loved this place so much, Caroline. He used to tell me he hoped you'd raise your own children here someday." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Mum, is that true? I don't remember—" "You don't remember having a realtor come look at the house 6 months before Riker's divorce. It was just— we were just looking at our options." "What options?" "Caroline, you're making this sound worse than it was." "How could it be worse? You sold my home to fund Riker's divorce. Now, I find out you were planning it before he even needed the money." Yolanda looks between us, finally sensing the tension. "Oh dear, I hope I haven't said something I shouldn't have." "No," I tell her. "You've said exactly what needed to be said." Mum stands up abruptly. "I think I need some air. Sit down." "Caroline." "Sit down." She sits. "Yolanda, what else do you remember about that time?" Yolanda glances at Mom, then back at me. "Well, there were a lot of phone calls, late at night, and that man who kept coming by." "What man?" "I never got his name. Expensive suit, fancy car. He'd meet with your mother on the porch sometimes." My stomach drops. "What did he look like?" "Tall, dark hair, maybe 45. He had one of those smiles that doesn't reach his eyes. I know that smile. I've seen it across dinner tables and at family gatherings for years." "Deacon," I whisper. Mum's face crumbles. "Caroline, please. Riker's friend Deacon was here before the divorce. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" She doesn't answer. Yolanda stands up, clearly uncomfortable. "I should probably go. Caroline, it was lovely seeing you again." I walk her to the door. "Thank you for stopping by. Caroline?" She lowers her voice. "Your father always said you were the strong one. He said you'd be okay no matter what happened. I think he was right." After she leaves, I turn back to Mom. She's crying again, but this time it looks different. Less manipulation, more genuine fear. "Start talking," I say. "Caroline, you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything, but you have to explain everything." She takes a shaky breath. "Deacon came to me with a business opportunity, an investment. He said if I could come up with some capital, he could triple it within a year." "And you believed him?" "He showed me paperwork, projections. It looked legitimate." "So you decided to sell my home to invest in Deacon's scheme?" "It wasn't a scheme. At least, I didn't think it was." "What happened to the money, Mom?" She doesn't answer. "What happened to the money?" "It's gone," she whispers. "All of it. The room goes silent except for the ticking of Dad's old clock on the mantel. So Riker's divorce was just an excuse. No, he really did need help. But that's not why you sold the house. She shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. I walk to the window and look out at the street where I used to ride my bike, where Dad taught me to parallel park, where I thought I'd bring my own kids someday to show them the house where Mommy grew up. Get out, I say quietly. Caroline, get out of my house. Please, we have nowhere else to go. You should have thought of that before you gambled away my inheritance. It wasn't your inheritance. It was my house to sell. I turn around slowly. Was it, Mom? Because Dad's will left it to both of us. I've seen the paperwork. Her face goes completely white. You forged my signature on the sale documents, didn't you? She doesn't answer, but she doesn't need to. The truth is written all over her face. Get out, I repeat. Both of you, now. Caroline, please, now! My voice echoes through the house like a gunshot. Upstairs, I hear Riker's door open. What's going on? He calls down. Pack your bags, I tell him. You're leaving. Like hell we are. Like hell you're not. But as I'm saying it, I hear the mailman's truck outside. Through the window I see him walking up the path with a certified letter addressed to Riker, from someone named Natasha. The mailman hands me the certified letter with a polite smile. For Riker Walton. He's here. I sign for it, my hand steady despite everything that just happened. Riker comes downstairs, looking suspicious. What's that? Mail for you. I hold out the letter. From Natasha. His face goes pale. I don't want it. Too bad, it's certified. Someone thinks it's important. Mum wipes her eyes. Maybe it's good news. Maybe she wants to reconcile. She wants to reconcile with the man who maxed out their joint credit cards and disappeared. I shake my head. Mum, even you can't be that naive. Riker snatches the letter from my hand. Fine, I'll read it later. Read it now. Caroline, read it now. He tears open the envelope with shaking hands. His eyes scan the page, and with each line he looks sicker. Well? Mum asks. Riker crumples the letter and throws it toward the trash can. It bounces off the rim and lands on the floor. I pick it up and smooth it out. Dear Riker, I read aloud. My attorney has discovered additional fraudulent activity on our joint accounts. The District Attorney's Office will be filing charges for credit card fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. You have 48 hours to turn yourself in before a warrant is issued for your arrest. Mum gasps. Riker, what did you do? I didn't do anything. The evidence includes forged signatures on loan applications, unauthorized credit lines opened in my name, and the liquidation of my retirement account without my knowledge or consent. I continue reading. The total amount stolen is $127,000. Stolen? Mum's voice is barely a whisper. Riker starts pacing. It wasn't stolen. That money was community property. I had every right to forge her signature. I fold the letter carefully. To open credit cards in her name. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it. It's complicated. I have time. He stops pacing and looks at me with desperate eyes. The condo deal fell through. I had already put money down, signed contracts. I needed to cover the losses. So you stole from your wife. Ex-wife. She wasn't your ex-wife when you took the money. Mum sinks onto the couch. Riker, please tell me this isn't true. Mum, I was trying to protect our assets. If the divorce went through and she got half of everything, we'd lose the house, the investments, everything Dad worked for. Dad didn't work for your third wife's retirement account, I point out. You don't get it. Natasha was vindictive. She was going to take everything just to hurt me. So you took everything first to hurt her. I was protecting the family. What family? The words come out sharper than I intended. The family that sold my childhood home. The family that left me homeless. That family? Riker's jaw tightens. Everything I did was for this family. Everything you did was for yourself. Mum stands up suddenly. Stop it, both of you. This fighting isn't helping anyone. You're right, I say. Fighting isn't helping. You know what would help? The truth. I pull out my phone and scroll through my contacts. Who are you calling? Mom asks. Deacon. Riker lunges for my phone. Don't. I step back. Why not? If he's such a good friend, maybe he can help explain this investment opportunity that cost us our house. Caroline, please. The phone rings twice before a familiar voice answers. Caroline. Jesus, I haven't heard from you in years. Hi, Deacon. I'm here with Mom and Riker. Mind if I put you on speaker? Sure. Is everything okay? I hit the speaker button. We're just talking about old times. Remember that investment opportunity you brought to Mom about 10 years ago? The silence on the other end stretches for several seconds. Deacon? Mum's voice is small. Are you there? Yeah, I'm here. Listen, Tamara, about that whole thing. What whole thing? Riker interrupts. The real estate investment, Deacon says slowly. The one that went south. What real estate investment? Riker's voice is getting higher. I watch Mum's face crumble as she realizes what's about to come out. Deacon, I say sweetly, Riker doesn't know about the investment. He thinks Mum sold the house to help him with his divorce. Oh, shit. Language, I say automatically. Riker, man, I'm sorry. I thought you knew. Your mum came to me looking for ways to make some quick money. I had this deal, seemed legit at the time. What deal? Riker's voice is deadly quiet. Flipping houses in Florida. The developer had all the right paperwork, showed us properties, profit projections. It looked solid. How much money? Riker, Mum starts. How much money, Deacon? $250,000, the full amount from the house sale. Riker turns to stare at Mom. You told me you gave me the money from the house. I did give you money. How much? $30,000 for the condo down payment. $30,000. His voice is flat. Out of $250,000. The rest was supposed to be an investment for all of us, for the family. And where is it now? Deacon clears his throat. The developer disappeared, took everyone's money and vanished. The FBI is still looking for him. The room goes completely silent. So, let me get this straight, Riker says finally. You sold Caroline's childhood home. You told her it was to help me with my divorce. You told me you were giving me the money from the sale. But actually, you gave me $30,000 and gambled away the other $220,000 on some scam. It wasn't a scam when I invested, and now you're both broke and homeless because you lost everything on a con man. Riker, please. And Caroline had to buy back her own house because you're both too stupid and selfish to make decent decisions. Hey, Deacon's voice comes through the phone. That's not fair. I hang up on him. Riker is staring at Mom like he's seeing her for the first time. You destroyed our family for nothing. I was trying to help. You were trying to get rich quick. And you used Caroline's inheritance to do it. Mum starts crying again, but this time even I can tell it's genuine. Not manipulation, just pure, devastating regret. I'm sorry, she whispers. I'm so sorry. But Riker isn't listening anymore. He's looking at me with something that might be respect. Caroline, he says quietly, I owe you an apology. Do you? I thought, all these years, I thought she sold the house to help me. I thought you were angry at me for taking money I never actually got. I don't respond. I'm still a screw-up, he continues. I still made my own mistakes. But I didn't know about this. I swear I didn't know. Does it matter? He thinks about that for a long moment. Yeah, I think it does. Outside, a car door slams. Through the window, I see a black sedan parked across the street. 2 people in suits getting out. Riker, I say calmly, I think your 48 hours just ran out. The suits walk up my front path like they own the place. The woman is tall, blonde, all business. The man looks like he bench presses small cars for fun. Riker Walton? The woman holds up a badge through my screen door. Riker goes completely still. Yeah. Detective Martinez, Fraud Division. This is Detective Brooks. We need you to come with us. Mum jumps up from the couch. Wait, what's happening? Ma'am, your son is under arrest for multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. There's been a mistake, Mom says, rushing toward the door. Riker would never... Mum, stop. Riker's voice is resigned. Just stop. Detective Martinez reads him his rights while Detective Brooks keeps his hand near his gun. Standard procedure, but it makes everything feel more real. Do you understand these rights as I've read them to you? Yeah. Riker, Mom's voice cracks. Don't say anything without a lawyer. I understand my rights, he tells the detective, ignoring Mom completely. They cuff him on my front porch, the same porch where Dad used to sit with me during thunderstorms, where I used to wait for the school bus every morning. Caroline, Riker says as they lead him toward the car. Take care of her, okay? I don't answer. The black sedan drives away and suddenly the house feels enormous and empty. Mum collapses back onto the couch, sobbing. This is all my fault, she keeps saying. This is all my fault. For once, I don't disagree with her. I leave her crying in the living room and go down to the basement. Riker's temporary bedroom looks like a tornado hit it, clothes everywhere, empty beer bottles hidden behind the dresser, cigarette butts in a coffee mug. But it's not the mess that catches my attention. It's the corner of something sticking out from under the mattress. I pull out a manila folder thick with papers, bank statements, credit reports, legal documents, all in Natasha's name, and at the bottom, something that makes my blood run cold. Therapy records, from when Natasha was seeing a counsellor during their marriage. Personal, private sessions about trauma and abuse. There's a handwritten note clipped to the front. Insurance if she tries to take everything. My hands shake as I flip through the pages. Natasha's most vulnerable moments, her deepest fears, all documented and saved by my brother as ammunition. Caroline, Mum's voice drifts down the stairs. What are you doing down there? I shove the folder under my arm and head back upstairs. Mum is standing at the top of the basement stairs, mascara streaked down her cheeks. What's that? Evidence? Evidence of what? I walk past her to the kitchen and spread the papers across the counter. Evidence that your son is worse than we thought. Mum peers over my shoulder. What is all this? Natasha's therapy records, medical information, personal documents that Riker stole during their marriage. Why would he have those? Blackmail, Mum. He was planning to use her trauma against her in the divorce. Mum's face goes white. That's not... Riker wouldn't what? Steal money, forge signatures, destroy people's lives for his own benefit. I laugh, but there's no humour in it. Mom, when are you going to stop making excuses for him? He's my son, and I'm your daughter, but that didn't stop you from throwing me away. She flinches like I hit her. I pull out my phone and scroll to Natasha's number. I got it from the return address on the letter. What are you doing? The right thing. The phone rings 3 times before a cautious voice answers. Hello? Natasha, this is Caroline, Riker's sister. Caroline, her voice softens slightly. I remember you, from the wedding. I have something that belongs to you. What do you mean? Therapy records, medical documents, personal papers that Riker took from your house. The silence on the other end stretches so long I think she hung up. He kept them. Her voice is barely a whisper. He kept them, along with a note about using them as insurance if you tried to take everything in the divorce. Oh my God. Natasha, I'm sorry. I had no idea he was capable of this. Where is he now? Arrested? About 20 minutes ago. Good. The word comes out sharp and final. Caroline, can you bring me those papers? I need to give them to my attorney. Of course, I'll drive them over tonight. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. After I hang up, Mom is staring at me like I'm a stranger. You're going to help her destroy your own brother. I'm going to help her get justice. He's family, Caroline. So was I, Mom. So was I. I gather up the papers and put them back in the folder. I'm driving these to Natasha tonight. When I get back, I want you gone. Gone where? I don't care. Motel, shelter, park bench. Anywhere but here. Caroline, please, I have nowhere to go. You should have thought of that before you gambled away my inheritance. I was trying to help the family. No, you were trying to help yourself, just like always. I head toward the front door, then stop. Mom? Yes? When Dad was dying, do you know what he told me? She shakes her head. He said this house would always be my home, that no matter what happened, I'd always have a place here. I turn to face her. He made me promise to take care of you if something happened to him. Caroline, I kept that promise for as long as I could, but you broke it the day you sold this house. You never meant a lot of things, Mom, but you did them anyway. I walk out the front door, leaving her standing in the hallway of the house she sold, the house I bought back, the house that was supposed to keep our family together but instead tore us apart. As I drive toward Natasha's apartment, I think about promises and betrayal, about family and loyalty, about the difference between forgiveness and justice. By the time I get back home, Mom's car is gone from the driveway. But there's a note taped to my front door. Caroline, I'm staying at the Comfort Inn on Highway 9, room 237. I know you don't want to see me, but I need you to know something about your father, something I should have told you years ago. Please call me. Mom. I crumple up the note and throw it in the trash. Some secrets are better left buried, but as I'm getting ready for bed, I find myself digging the note out of the garbage. Room 237. Something about my father. I stare at the note for a long time before finally putting it in the kitchen drawer next to the spare keys. Just in case. I don't sleep that night. Every time I close my eyes, I see Mom's handwriting. Something about your father. At 6 a.m., I give up and make coffee. The house feels different without them here, quieter but also emptier. I sit in Dad's chair and stare at the kitchen drawer where I put the note. By 8 a.m., I'm in my car driving to the Comfort Inn. Room 237 is on the second floor overlooking the parking lot. I knock twice before Mom opens the door. She looks like she hasn't slept either. Caroline, her voice is hoarse. I wasn't sure you'd come. I'm here, talk. She steps aside to let me in. The room smells like stale cigarettes and desperation. There's a suitcase open on the bed, clothes spilling out like she's been living out of it for weeks. Do you want coffee? The machine here is terrible, but... Mom, just tell me what you need to tell me. She sits on the edge of the bed, wringing her hands. It's about the house, about why your father really wanted you to have it. He wanted me to have it because it was our home. No, she shakes her head. There was more to it than that. I remain standing by the door, arms crossed. I'm listening. Your father, he knew about Riker, about his problems. Long before the divorces, before the drinking got bad. He knew. Knew what? About the stealing, the lying, the way he treated people. She takes a shaky breath. When Riker was 16, he stole money from your father's wallet, $200. When your dad confronted him, Riker looked him straight in the eye and lied about it. Teenagers steal money, Mum. That's not... He stole it to buy drugs, cocaine. Your father found the baggie in Riker's room. I sit down in the chair by the window. Dad never told me that. He didn't want you to think badly of your brother. But he started watching Riker more carefully after that. And what he saw... She trails off. What did he see? Riker stole from his girlfriends, from his friends. He cheated on every test he could, lied about everything, manipulated people to get what he wanted. Your father tried to get him help, but Riker just got better at hiding it. Why are you telling me this now? Mom stands up and walks to the window. Because your father changed his will 3 months before he died. He left the house entirely to you, not to both of us like I told you. The room goes silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. What? The house was always meant to be yours, only yours. Your father knew that if I inherited it, I'd eventually give it to Riker, and he knew Riker would destroy it. But you sold it anyway. I forged the documents. I told the lawyer that your father had changed his mind before he died, that he wanted us to inherit it jointly. I had power of attorney, so they believed me. I stare at her, trying to process what she just said. You committed fraud. I was trying to help Riker. You stole my inheritance. You literally stole it. Caroline, please, get out. What? I stand up, my whole body shaking with rage. Get out of this room. Get out of this town. Get out of my life. Caroline, you have to understand. I understand perfectly. Dad knew exactly what you and Riker were. He tried to protect me from both of you, and you stole from me anyway. I'm your mother. No, you're not. The words come out cold and final. A mother protects her children. A mother doesn't steal from them to enable their drug-addicted son. Riker is exactly what Dad said he was. A thief and a liar. And so are you. Mom starts crying, but I don't care anymore. The tears that used to make me feel guilty now just make me angry. I gave you a chance, I continue. I let you stay in my house. I gave you rules to follow, a way to earn your place back in my life. And what did you do? You called me mentally unstable behind my back. I was scared. Of what? Of being held accountable for your actions? Of losing you completely. You lost me 10 years ago when you sold my home. Everything since then has just been me figuring out how much I could forgive. And now I know the answer. Nothing. I can forgive nothing. I walk toward the door, then stop. Mum? Yes. Dad's workshop in the basement. I found something interesting when I was renovating. Her face goes pale. What? A safe, hidden behind the water heater. Want to guess what was in it? She doesn't answer. Copies of everything, the real will, documentation of Riker's thefts, evidence of your fraud. Dad knew you'd try to steal from me, so he made sure I'd have proof when I was old enough to use it. Caroline! I could have you arrested. Both of you. Fraud, forgery, theft. But I'm not going to. Why not? Because Dad wouldn't have wanted that. He would have wanted me to be better than both of you. I open the door and step into the hallway. Caroline, wait! I turn back one last time. Don't contact me again. Don't drive by my house. Don't ask Skylar for my number. Don't send birthday cards or Christmas presents. We're done. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. But we're family. No, Mom. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and destroy each other's lives. You and Riker are strangers who happen to share my DNA. Caroline, please. I close the door and walk away, leaving her voice echoing in the hallway behind me. In the parking lot, I sit in my car for a long time, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Part of me wants to go back upstairs and take it all back, to forgive her one more time, to try to rebuild something from the wreckage of our family. But I don't. Instead, I drive home to my house. The house Dad meant for me to have. The house I bought back with my own money. The house where I can finally live in peace. As I pull into the driveway, I see Skylar sitting on my front porch with 2 cups of coffee and a concerned expression. Rough morning? She asks. You could say that. Want to talk about it? I take the coffee she offers and sit down beside her. I just cut ties with my mother. For good this time? For good this time. We sit in comfortable silence, watching the neighbourhood wake up around us. Normal people living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. Any regrets? Skylar asks finally. I think about it for a long moment. Yeah, I regret that it took me this long. Skylar and I are still sitting on the porch when my phone rings. Unknown number. Caroline, this is Natasha. Hi, how are you holding up? Better, actually, much better. The documents you brought me, my attorney says they're going to add blackmail and extortion to Riker's charges. He's looking at serious prison time now. Good. There's something else, something I think you should know. I glance at Skylar, who raises her eyebrows. What is it? The prosecutor wants to talk to you about your mother's involvement in the fraud. Apparently, when they dug deeper into Riker's finances, they found evidence that she helped him hide assets. My stomach drops. What kind of evidence? Bank transfers. Joint accounts she opened for him under fake names. Caroline, she wasn't just enabling him. She was actively helping him steal from me. I close my eyes. Even now, even after everything, Mom found new ways to disappoint me. What happens now? That's up to you. The prosecutor says they have enough to charge her, but they'd prefer to have your cooperation since you're the one who brought them the evidence. I need to think about it. Of course, but Caroline, thank you for everything. You gave me my life back. After I hang up, Skylar looks at me expectantly. Mum's in deeper than I thought, I tell her. Deeper how? I explain about the prosecutor, the additional charges, the choice I have to make. What are you going to do? Before I can answer, another car pulls up. This one I recognise, it's Deacon's black BMW. He gets out slowly like he's approaching a wild animal. Caroline, can we talk? Depends. Are you here to apologise or make excuses? Apologise. Definitely apologise. Skylar stands up. I'll give you some privacy. Stay, I tell her. Whatever Deacon has to say, he can say it in front of you. Deacon walks up to the porch but doesn't sit down. I heard about Riker, about the arrest. And I wanted you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. The investment, your mom losing the house money, it was supposed to be legitimate. But it wasn't. No, it wasn't. He runs his hand through his hair. The developer took everyone's money and disappeared. I lost everything too. My house, my savings, my marriage. I'm supposed to feel sorry for you. No, I'm supposed to feel sorry for you, and I do. What happened to you wasn't fair. What happened to me was that my mother chose to gamble away my inheritance on your recommendation. I know, and I've regretted it every day for 10 years. Have you? He nods. I tried to find the developer, hired private investigators, worked with the FBI. I wanted to get everyone's money back. Did you? No. He's probably in some country without extradition treaties, living off our money. I study his face, looking for signs of deception, but he just looks tired and guilty. Why are you here, Deacon? Because I heard you bought the house back, and I wanted to give you this. He pulls an envelope from his jacket pocket. It's not much, $20,000. It's all I have left, but I want you to have it. I don't want your money. It's not my money, it's yours. It's part of what your mother lost on my stupid recommendation. 20,000 out of 250,000. It's all I have, Caroline. I wish it was more. I look at the envelope, then at him. Keep it. What? Keep your money, Deacon. I don't need it. But I don't need your guilt money, and I don't need your apologies. I needed them 10 years ago when I was sleeping on couches and eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner. He looks stricken. Caroline, please. I'm not angry at you anymore. I'm not angry at anyone anymore. I'm just done. Done with what? Done carrying other people's guilt. Done making excuses for people who don't deserve them. Done pretending that family means something when it clearly doesn't. Deacon puts the envelope back in his pocket. For what it's worth, your father would be proud of you. Would he? He always said you were the strongest person he knew. Said you'd survive anything life threw at you. He was right. After Deacon leaves, Skylar and I go inside. The house feels peaceful now, like it's finally settled into being mine. So, what are you going to do about the prosecutor? She asks. I'm going to tell them the truth. All of it. Even if it means your mom goes to prison. Especially if it means my mom goes to prison. My phone rings again. This time it's a number I don't recognize, but when I answer, the voice is familiar. Caroline, this is your mother. I told you not to contact me. I'm at the police station. They want to talk to me about Riker's case, about the money. Good. Caroline, please, I need a lawyer. I need help. Then hire one. I don't have any money for a lawyer. That's not my problem. You're my daughter. No, I'm not. I'm the person whose inheritance you stole. I'm the person whose childhood home you sold to fund your son's crimes. I'm the person you abandoned when I needed you most. Caroline, I'm also the person who's going to testify against you if they ask me to. The silence on the other end stretches for a long time. I love you, she says finally. No, you don't. You love the idea of me forgiving you so you can feel better about yourself, but I'm done making you feel better. I hang up and turn off my phone. Skylar pours us both wine, and we sit in my living room, the room where Dad used to read me bedtime stories, where Mom used to host her book club meetings, where Riker used to play video games and ignore his homework. Any regrets? Skylar asks. I look around the room, at the family photos I put back up, at Dad's chair where I sit every morning with my coffee, at the fireplace where we used to hang Christmas stockings. Yeah, I say, I regret that it took me so long to realize that some people aren't worth saving. Even family, especially family, because they're the ones who can hurt you the most. We drink our wine in comfortable silence, and for the first time in 10 years, I feel completely at peace. Outside, the sun is setting behind the trees in my backyard, the same trees Dad planted when I was 5, the same yard where he taught me to throw a baseball and ride a bike. This house has seen a lot of pain, a lot of betrayal, a lot of broken promises, but it's also seen love and laughter and hope. And now it's mine. Really, truly mine. Some family you're born into, others you choose, and some you soberly evict.
My name is Reese, and for most of my life, I've been the invisible button on a designer coat. Functional, necessary, but never the focal point. At 29, I'd perfected the art of existing quietly, a skill honed by years of being the less glamorous, more practical daughter in the Thomas household. I work from home, a freelance UX and UI designer, which only solidified my family's belief that I didn't actually do anything. My office is a corner of my living room, bathed in the soft glow of multiple monitors, and my loudest coworker is usually the hum of my espresso machine. I'm introverted by nature, but my family's constant dismissal had certainly helped me lean into it. Silence, for me, was a double-edged sword, sometimes a comfort, sometimes a stark reminder of how little space I occupied in their world. One quick thing. Tell me your location in the comments. I'm curious where my stories travel. That's why the Tesla was so important. Not just any car, but my car. A Model 3, deep blue, sleek and silent. I'd bought it outright, every penny earned from countless late nights hunched over design mock-ups, translating client visions into clean, intuitive interfaces. It wasn't a status symbol for me. It was a monument to my independence, a tangible representation of every ignored boundary and every unacknowledged achievement. It was the one thing that was unequivocally mine, paid for by me, chosen by me. It sat in my driveway, a quiet testament to my fierce, if often unseen, self-sufficiency, until it wasn't there. I woke up that Tuesday morning to the usual quiet hum of my house, the kind of stillness I usually cherished, poured myself a coffee, walked to the window, and blinked. The driveway was empty. My Tesla, usually gleaming under the morning sun, was gone. My first thought was theft. My heart hammered, a cold dread spreading through my chest. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my mother, Lauren. "Morning, honey. Just borrowed your car for Francesca's photo shoot. Needed something sleek for the wedding aesthetic. You don't go anywhere anyway, so you won't miss it. Love you." I stared at the screen, the words blurring. Lauren, 54, and still wielding passive aggression like a finely tuned weapon, had done it again. My younger sister, Francesca, 26, the golden child, the social media influencer whose life was a curated feed of perfection, was getting married to Beckett, a trust fund baby whose biggest flaw seemed to be his earnest naivete. And my mother, the controlling widow who saw Francesca as her personal project, had simply taken my car, not asked, not borrowed with permission, taken for a photo shoot, for the aesthetic. My jaw tightened. This wasn't family sharing, as Lauren would inevitably call it. This was a seizure, a casual act of entitlement, another brick in the wall of her favoritism. Francesca, of course, would have known. She'd probably even suggested it. Why bother with a rental when Reese's perfectly good, fully paid for Tesla was just sitting there, doing nothing? My initial instinct, the one honed by years of being the easy daughter, was to call, to argue, to demand it back. But then I remembered the countless times I tried that, only to be met with Lauren's practiced sighs about how sensitive I was, or Francesca's wide-eyed innocence, claiming she didn't realize it was such a big deal. It was always me who was the problem, me who was too demanding, too selfish. So I didn't. I took a slow, deep breath, the bitter taste of cold coffee in my mouth. I walked to the kitchen, poured the rest of the coffee down the drain, and rinsed the mug. I even hummed a little tune, a quiet, almost imperceptible melody. I picked up my phone, texted Lauren back. "No problem, Mom. Glad I could help." I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach my eyes. It was the kind of smile that promised nothing good. That afternoon, I sat at my laptop, the screen reflecting the cool blue light of my office. My fingers moved over the keyboard, navigating through the Tesla app's interface. There it was, the little car icon, moving steadily along a highway, a tiny digital breadcrumb trail. The app had a hidden GPS tracking feature, a standard security measure I'd set up when I first bought the car. I'd never had a reason to use it before. My gaze lingered on the small, unassuming button labeled Location History. I clicked it. The map populated with a spiderweb of past routes, each line a silent record. I leaned back in my chair, a new kind of hum filling the quiet room. This wasn't about the car anymore. Not really. "Let's make this interesting," I muttered, my voice barely a whisper, a promise to myself and to them. The little car icon on my laptop screen became my new obsession. For the first few days after I activated the GPS, it was exactly what I expected. Francesca's usual circuit: department stores, high-end boutiques, nail salons, and the occasional coffee shop with a drive-through. She was clearly using my Tesla as her personal luxury shuttle, zipping around town, probably blasting pop music and taking selfies for her Instagram stories. I saw the car parked for hours at a time at places like the Gilded Lily Spa and Haute Couture Bridal. It felt like a low-grade fever, a constant irritating hum in the background of my otherwise quiet life. Then came the speeding. My Tesla, a car I drove with mindful precision, was suddenly hitting 75 in a 55 zone. Francesca, clearly in a hurry to get to her next perfectly curated moment. I tracked it all, silently logging the times, the addresses, the speeds. It was a mundane pattern of self-indulgence, a confirmation of everything I already knew about her, until Wednesday. The car had been parked near Beckett's firm for most of the day, which wasn't unusual. Francesca often met him for lunch, or just waited around for him to finish work. But then, around 6 p.m., the little blue dot started moving. Not towards her apartment, not towards our mother's house. It headed north, out of the city, onto the highway. An hour later, it pulled into a parking garage. The address popped up on the screen, the Grandeur Hotel, a 5-star luxury establishment, an hour's drive from the city, known for its discreet service and exorbitant prices. My eyebrows lifted. An overnight trip? To a luxury hotel? On a Wednesday? Francesca wasn't exactly known for her spontaneous, romantic getaways with Beckett. Their dates were usually meticulously planned and documented for social media. This felt different. The car stayed put all night. It didn't move until 10 a.m. the next morning, when it drove straight back to the city. I called Sadie, my best friend and neighbor, a few hours later. Sadie, 30 and perpetually clad in comfortable sweats, answered on the second ring. "Reese, you sound like you just discovered a new shade of beige. What's up?" "My car," I said, my voice flat. "It spent the night at the Grandeur Hotel." There was a beat of silence. Then, Sadie's low whistle. "Ooh, fancy. So, Francesca and Beckett had a little pre-wedding rendezvous? Good for them. Though I'd have thought they'd post about it." "That's the thing," I said, leaning back in my chair, the map still on my screen. No posts. And it was a Wednesday. And the car left at 10 a.m. Beckett usually works until 6. Sadie was at my door 15 minutes later, armed with a bag of chips and a skeptical expression. "Okay, walk me through this digital breadcrumb trail." I showed her the GPS history, the overnight stay, the timing. "It just feels off," I concluded. "Francesca is a walking billboard. If she was at the Grandeur with Beckett, the entire internet would know." "Agreed," Sadie said, crunching on a chip. "So what's our next move, Sherlock?" "We need to know who she was with," I said, my gaze fixed on the hotel's location. "The Grandeur is pretty private, but it's a big place. There has to be something." This was where my tech-savvy skills came in. Not hacking, not breaking laws, but knowing how to dig. We started with the basics, cross-referencing the exact time the car arrived, and left with any publicly available information about the hotel. Local news reports, social media posts geotagged at the Grandeur, even public webcams that might have a view of the entrance. It was like sifting through digital sand, looking for a specific grain. Hours passed. We scrolled through Instagram stories, Facebook check-ins, even obscure travel vlogs. Most of it was useless. Then Sadie gasped, "Reese, look at this." She pointed to a blurry background in a short video clip, part of a travel influencer story from that exact Wednesday night. The influencer was filming herself walking through the Grandeur's opulent lobby, gushing about the decor. But in the background, near the main entrance, a blue Tesla was visible pulling up to the valet, and 2 figures were getting out. "Enhance," Sadie joked, but I was already working. I downloaded the video, ran it through a few open-source video enhancement tools, and zoomed in. The quality was still grainy, but undeniably was my Tesla. And the 2 figures, one was tall, slender, with long blonde hair. Francesca, no doubt. My breath hitched as I focused on the second person, a male. He was taller than Francesca, with dark wavy hair. He turned his head slightly as he walked, and the angle, combined with the low resolution, made it hard to be certain. But the way he moved, the slight tilt of his head, I zoomed in further, pushing the pixels to their limit. The face resolved, just enough. My stomach dropped. It wasn't Beckett. It was Casey, Casey Murray, my ex-fling, Casey. The name hit me like a physical blow, even though I hadn't thought about him in years. Casey Murray, 27, a graphic designer I dated casually for a few months about a year and a half ago. It had been nothing serious, just a comfortable, easygoing connection that had fizzled out when he got a new job in a different city. We'd parted amicably, no drama, just a mutual understanding that it wasn't going anywhere. He was charming, funny, a little bit reckless, and surprisingly sweet. Everything Francesca usually avoided in favor of polished, pre-approved partners like Beckett. But then, I remembered, Francesca had a history of quietly, almost invisibly, stealing anything I ever showed even a passing interest in. A specific brand of coffee I liked, suddenly it was her new favorite. A niche artist I'd mentioned, her new obsession, complete with framed prints. It was never overt, never a direct challenge. Just a subtle absorption, a way of making my preferences her own, effectively erasing my original claim. I'd always dismissed it as a weird sibling quirk, a byproduct of her need to be the center of attention. But Casey, this was a person. Sadie, seeing my face, leaned closer. Casey? As in, you're Casey? I nodded, still staring at the pixelated image on the screen. The one and only. Well, damn, Sadie breathed. She really went for the full service package, didn't she? Your car, your ex-fling, your mother's approval. A cold anger, sharp and precise, began to replace the initial shock. This wasn't just about the car anymore. This was about a pattern, a lifetime of being overlooked, then actively undermined. Francesca wasn't just borrowing my things. She was systematically erasing my existence, one small, calculated theft at a time. And our mother, Lauren, was complicit, even an enabler. My first thought, the immediate visceral one, was to call Francesca, to confront her, to scream, to demand an explanation. But then, a different thought, colder and more satisfying, settled in. Why interrupt a liar when she's building her own noose? This wasn't a petty squabble. This was an opportunity to finally, definitively make them see me. Not the invisible button, but the hand that held the needle. I started compiling my files. This wasn't just a collection of screenshots. It was a meticulous digital murder board. I created a new folder on my desktop, labeled it Project Clarity. Inside, I started dropping everything. GPS history logs, time-stamped to the minute, showing every route, every stop, every speed violation. Freeze frames from the hotel video, zoomed and enhanced, clearly showing Francesca and Casey exiting my Tesla at the Grandeur. Screenshots of Francesca's social media, noting the conspicuous absence of any mention of a romantic getaway with Beckett, or any posts from the Grandeur during that specific time. A timeline meticulously detailing the car's movements, cross-referenced with Francesca's known schedule and Beckett's work hours. It was like building a case, piece by painstaking piece. My UX/UI skills, usually applied to designing user-friendly websites, were now focused on constructing an airtight narrative of betrayal. Every click, every drag and drop, felt like a tiny act of rebellion. A few days later, just as I was refining my timeline, my phone rang. Lauren. "Reese, darling, so glad I caught you. Francesca is having a bit of a meltdown about the wedding website. The designer she hired just disappeared. You know, creative types. Anyway, she was wondering if you could just whip something up for her. You're so good with computers, and you're always home anyway. It would be a huge help." My mother's voice, dripping with her usual blend of casual expectation and thinly veiled manipulation, grated on my nerves. You're always home anyway. The familiar dismissal, the assumption that my work was a hobby, my time limitless and worthless. I paused, a calculated silence stretching between us. I could say no. I could tell her exactly where she could stick her wedding website, but then I wouldn't have a front row seat. I wouldn't have access. A slow smile spread across my face, the kind of smile that promised nothing good. Of course, Mom, I said, my voice sweet, almost too sweet. I'd be happy to help Francesca with her wedding website. Send me all the details. Oh, Reese, you're a lifesaver. I knew I could count on you. See? You always come through. I hung up, the smile still fixed. Oh, I'll come through, all right. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Francesca, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was a message clearly intended for Beckett, or so she thought. It had been sent to Sadie. Francesca must have accidentally typed Sadie's number instead of Beckett's, probably because Sadie was in her recent contacts from some group chat. The message read, "Can't stop thinking about the Tesla and that hotel suite. Next time, let's skip the dinner and go straight for the dessert." Sadie immediately forwarded it to me. My eyes widened. It was the final, undeniable piece of the puzzle, the accidental confession. The universe, it seemed, was collaborating with me. The rehearsal dinner was in 3 days. 3 days to finalize my Project Clarity file. 3 days to print everything, to choose the perfect paper, the perfect envelope. I spent those days in a quiet, almost meditative state. I finished Francesca's wedding website, of course. It was pristine, elegant, featuring all the curated photos of her and Beckett looking blissfully in love. Every click, every carefully placed image felt like a silent, mocking laugh. The accidental text from Francesca to Sadie, the one about the Tesla and that hotel suite, was the final nail in the coffin. I added a screenshot of it to my file, along with Sadie's confirmation. The evidence was irrefutable. It wasn't just circumstantial. It was a confession. The day before the rehearsal dinner, I called my mother. I needed to hear it one last time, to confirm what I already knew. "Mom," I started, my voice calm, almost detached. "Can we talk about something? Just for a minute?" "Of course, darling," Lauren said, her voice a little distracted. "Just rushing around getting everything ready for the dinner tonight." "What is it?" "It's about Francesca," I said, "and me." Did you ever love me enough to pick me? To put me first? Even once?" There was a beat of silence on the line, a hesitation that spoke volumes. Then, her practiced sigh. "Reese, what kind of question is that? I love both my daughters equally. You know that." "Do I?" I pressed, my voice still even, but with a thread of steel, because it always felt like Francesca was the one who needed protecting, the one who needed the spotlight, and I was just the one who could handle it, the one who didn't need anything. "You always survive, Reese," Lauren said, her voice softening, but it was the same old line, the same old justification. "You're so strong, so independent. Francesca, she's more fragile. She needs support. You've always been so resilient. You don't need me to fuss over you. So, because I'm resilient, I don't deserve the same care, the same consideration?" I asked, a bitter taste in my mouth. "Because I don't make a fuss? You assume I don't feel anything?" "Reese, don't be dramatic," she said, a hint of impatience creeping into her tone. "We're talking about a wedding here. This isn't the time for old grievances. Francesca needs this. She needs everything to be perfect." "Right," I said, the word flat. "Francesca needs everything to be perfect." "Exactly." "Now, about the seating chart for the rehearsal dinner, I was thinking you could sit at table 3 with your aunt and uncle." I didn't argue. I didn't correct her. I just listened. The phone pressed to my ear, the familiar pattern of her dismissiveness washing over me. When she finally ran out of instructions, I simply said, "Okay, Mom, see you tonight." I hung up, a strange calm settling over me. It was confirmed. She would never choose me. She would always prioritize Francesca, always justify her neglect with my supposed strength. And that was fine, because now I had all the pieces. I printed the entire Tesla timeline, every GPS log, every screenshot, every piece of evidence, including Francesca's accidental text. I arranged them chronologically, bound them neatly, and slid the stack of pages into a sleek, crisp white envelope. It was thick, substantial. On the front, in elegant minimalist script, I wrote, "Congrats." No names, just the word. Then I went to my closet. I bypassed the soft sweaters and comfortable jeans. I pulled out my black dress. Not a fancy cocktail dress, but a simple tailored black sheath. It was understated, elegant, and utterly devoid of joy. I paired it with black heels and a small black clutch. As I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman dressed for a funeral. Her own, perhaps, or someone else's. The rehearsal dinner was held at a beautiful upscale restaurant downtown. The air buzzed with nervous excitement, clinking glasses, and the forced cheer of family gatherings. Francesca, radiant in a white lace dress, was flitting between tables, accepting congratulations. Lauren, beaming, was playing the proud mother, orchestrating everything with practiced ease. I walked in, a quiet shadow in my black dress. I found my assigned seat at table 3, next to my aunt and uncle, who barely registered my presence beyond a quick nod. I ate the bread, sipped my water, and watched. I watched Francesca's performative joy, Lauren's self-satisfied smile, Beckett's earnest, slightly overwhelmed expression. He was a good man, I thought. Too good for this. Halfway through the main course, Beckett, who was at the head table, excused himself and came over to our table. He looked tired, but genuinely happy. He leaned toward me, a polite smile on his face. "Reese, thanks for coming and for helping with the website. It looks fantastic." My smile was thin, almost imperceptible. "My pleasure, Beckett," I said, my voice soft. I reached into my black clutch. My fingers closed around the thick white envelope. I pulled it out, the stark white a stark contrast to my black dress. "For you," I said, sliding the envelope across the polished wooden table towards him. It landed with a soft, decisive thud. "A wedding gift." Beckett picked up the envelope. He looked at the elegant script, then at me, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He probably expected a gift card, or perhaps a small framed photo. He certainly didn't expect what was inside. He tore open the seal carefully, pulling out the thick stack of pages. He read the first page, then the second. His brow furrowed. I watched his face, a mask of polite curiosity slowly giving way to disbelief, then dawning horror. His eyes scanned the detailed GPS logs, the dates, the addresses. His hands, which had been resting calmly on the table, began to tremble, just slightly at first. Francesca, who had been laughing loudly at the head table, suddenly went quiet. Her gaze, usually fixed on herself or the nearest camera, darted to Beckett. She saw his expression, the way his shoulders had stiffened, the paper shaking in his hands. Her smile faltered. "Beckett?" "What is it?" she called out, her voice a little too loud in the suddenly quieter room. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer. He just stood up slowly, deliberately. The pages in his hand rustled. He didn't look at Francesca. He didn't look at Lauren, who was now staring at him, her face a mixture of confusion and irritation. He didn't look at anyone. He simply turned and walked out of the dining hall. His departure was quiet, but it was like a physical blow, sucking the air out of the room. Panic, swift and sharp, bloomed on Francesca's face. The curate perfection of her evening shattered. "Beckett, where are you going?" she shrieked, pushing back her chair. It scraped loudly against the floor, a jarring sound in the sudden silence. The murmurs started then, a ripple of whispers spreading through the room. Heads turned. Guests exchanged confused glances. Lauren's face was a study in controlled fury, her eyes darting between Francesca's escalating panic and the empty doorway where Beckett had vanished. Francesca rushed towards my table, her eyes blazing, fixed on me. "What did you give him, Reese? What was in that envelope?" Her voice was a desperate hiss, raw and uncharacteristic. I met her gaze, my expression calm, almost serene. I took a slow sip of my water. "Just a story," I replied, my voice soft, but clear enough for those at my table to hear. "With wheels." She lunged for the envelope, which Beckett had left on the table. My aunt, startled, pulled back her arm. Francesca snatched the thick white folder, her fingers tearing at the edges in her haste. "Francesca, darling, what is going on?" Lauren demanded, rushing over, her voice tight with barely suppressed rage. "What have you done, Reese?" Francesca ignored her, her eyes scanning the first page, then the second. Her face, usually so animated and expressive, drained of all color. The vibrant blush she'd applied for the dinner seemed to vanish, leaving her skin stark white. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She tried to push past Lauren, to chase after Beckett, but Sadie, who had been sitting quietly at a nearby table, suddenly appeared. She casually stepped in front of Francesca, blocking her path. It looked almost accidental, a clumsy movement in the crowded space. "Whoa, easy there, bride-to-be," Sadie said, her voice light, almost playful, but her eyes were fixed on Francesca's face. As she subtly held Francesca back, she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that only Francesca and I could hear. "Check page 15, Francesca. It's a real page-turner." Francesca froze, her eyes wide with terror. She looked down at the folder in her hands, her fingers fumbling through the pages until she found page 15. It was the screenshot of her accidental text to Sadie. "Can't stop thinking about the Tesla and that hotel suite. Next time, let's skip the dinner and go straight for the dessert." Her eyes darted back up, meeting mine. The silence in the dining hall was absolute now, the murmurs having died down, replaced by an unbearable tension. Every eye was on Francesca, on me, on the white envelope clutched in her trembling hands. Her face crumpled. A guttural sound tore from her throat, a raw, primal scream that echoed through the suddenly silent room. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated devastation, the sound of her perfectly constructed world imploding around her. The scream reverberated through the dining hall, a raw, ugly sound that tore through the polite facade of the rehearsal dinner. Francesca dropped the envelope, the pages scattering across the polished floor like fallen leaves. She stood there, trembling, her face a mask of horror and disbelief, tears streaming down her cheeks, smearing her carefully applied makeup. Lauren rushed to her side, her own face pale with shock. "Francesca, what is it? What did she do?" she demanded, glaring at me. But Francesca couldn't speak. She just pointed a shaking finger at me, then at the scattered pages. The entire room was a tableau of stunned silence, broken only by Francesca's ragged sobs. No one needed an explanation. The sheer, visceral reaction of the bride-to-be, the sudden departure of the groom, and my calm, almost serene presence in the eye of the storm told them everything they needed to know. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. My work was done. Sadie gave me a quick, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement of a mission accomplished. I simply stood up, walked past the frozen faces, and exited the dining hall, leaving the chaos in my wake. The cool night air outside felt like a cleansing breath after the suffocating tension inside. The fallout was swift and brutal. By the next morning, the wedding was officially called off. Francesca's meticulously curated Instagram stories, the ones documenting every detail of her perfect wedding journey, vanished. Posts were deleted. Her entire online presence, the carefully constructed influencer perfect life, began to crack and crumble in real time. The whispers turned into a roar, amplified by the speed of social media. The story, fueled by the shock of a public implosion, spread like wildfire. Lauren called me later that day, her voice shaking with a fury I hadn't heard directed at me in years. "How could you, Reese? How could you be so cruel? You've ruined everything." Her life, her reputation, this family's name. "Cruel?" I repeated, my voice flat. "You handed her my life, Mom. You gave her my car, my independence, because you didn't think I deserved one. You enabled her to take everything she wanted, including my ex-fling, and you expected me to just sit quietly and be the resilient one." "She's your sister. She's fragile. She needed this," Lauren shrieked. "No," I countered, my voice rising for the first time. "She wanted this. And you let her have it, at my expense. You didn't think I'd fight back, did you? You thought I'd just take it, like always." There was a pause, a moment of stunned silence on her end. "You're just like your father," she finally spat, the ultimate insult in her book. "Always so cold, so calculating." "Maybe," I said, a faint smile touching my lips. "Maybe I am, but at least I'm honest about it." I hung up before she could respond. There was nothing left to say. A few days later, on a gray Friday morning, there was a quiet hum outside my house. I looked out the window. My deep blue Tesla, freshly washed, was parked back in my driveway, exactly where it belonged. It was a silent, almost apologetic return, a stark contrast to the dramatic exit it had made weeks ago. No note, no explanation, just the car, back home. Later that afternoon, Francesca showed up at my door. I saw her through the peephole, her face blotchy, her hair disheveled, a far cry from the glamorous influencer. She knocked, then pounded. "Reese, open the door. We need to talk. Please." Her voice was hoarse, desperate. I didn't open it. I just stood there, on the other side of the solid wood, listening to her pleas, her demands, her eventual frustrated sobs as she realized I wasn't going to budge. After about 10 minutes, she gave up, her footsteps retreating down the driveway. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and then slowly, deliberately, walked out to my car. I opened the driver's side door, the familiar scent of leather and new car smell, my smell, filling my nostrils. I slid into the driver's seat, my hands gripping the steering wheel. It felt good, solid, mine. Then I noticed it. On the passenger seat, tucked neatly into the crease, was a single fake white rose, and draped over it, crumpled and discarded, was Francesca's bridal veil. I picked up the fake rose. It was cheap, plastic, a stark contrast to the real flowers that would have adorned Francesca's wedding. The veil, crumpled and discarded, felt flimsy in my hands. A trophy, perhaps, or a final, desperate act of defiance. I tossed them both onto the dashboard, a strange, almost macabre decoration. Then I started the car. The familiar, silent hum of the Tesla filled the space. I backed out of the driveway, the tires crunching softly on the gravel. It was my first time driving it in weeks, and the feeling was complicated. It wasn't the triumphant roar of a victory lap, not the exhilarating rush of pure revenge. It was quieter than that. Vengeance, I realized, wasn't a loud celebratory thing. It was a release, like holding your breath for a lifetime and finally exhaling. The weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying, the constant low-grade thrum of being overlooked, dismissed, and taken for granted, had lifted. It wasn't comfort, not exactly. It was clarity, a sharp, undeniable understanding of who I was and who they were and where I stood in relation to them. I drove aimlessly, letting the car glide through the quiet suburban streets, then onto the highway. The GPS, my silent accomplice, was now just a navigation tool, guiding me wherever I chose to go. I thought about the dining hall, the moment Beckett walked out. That brief electric second where the polite murmurs died and Francesca's carefully constructed world imploded. It was heartbreaking, yes, for Beckett, but for me, it was profoundly satisfying, not because I wanted to hurt them, not purely, but because for the first time they saw me. They saw the consequences of their actions, delivered by the invisible button. My phone buzzed, an email notification. I pulled over to a quiet side street and checked it. It was from Beckett. The subject line was simple. Thank you. I opened it. The message was brief, earnest, just like him. He thanked me for the truth, for having the courage to show him what he needed to see. He said he was hurting, but that he knew deep down it was for the best. He wished me well. I stared at the words for a long moment. He was a good man. He deserved better. But he wasn't the one I needed to hear from. His validation, while kind, wasn't the point of this. This wasn't about him. It was about me. I pressed the delete button. The email vanished. I drove for another hour, just driving, feeling the hum of the car, the quiet power beneath my hands. The fake rose and the crumpled veil sat on the dashboard, a silent reminder. When I finally pulled back into my driveway, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the lawn. I walked into my quiet house, the silence no longer a burden, but a sanctuary. I brewed a cup of tea, the familiar ritual grounding me. Then I opened my laptop. The screen glowed, inviting. I opened a new document. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I had a story to tell, a different kind of story than the ones I designed for clients. This one was mine. I typed the first line, keep the car, and other lies my family told me. The weeks that followed the rehearsal dinner faded into months. I hadn't spoken to Lauren or Francesca since that day. There were no calls, no texts, no attempts at reconciliation from their end, just silence, which suited me perfectly. It was a different kind of silence than before, though, not the silence of being overlooked, but the silence of a boundary firmly, irrevocably drawn. One warm afternoon, roughly 6 months after the wedding implosion, Sadie and I sat on my porch. The air was soft, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine. New plants, vibrant and green, thrived in pots around us, a small, tangible representation of growth. My Tesla, clean and gleaming, was parked peacefully under the old oak tree in my driveway, a quiet sentinel. The fake rose and discarded veil were long gone from the dashboard. I tossed them a few days after the car's return, no longer needing them as reminders. The clarity was enough. Heard anything from the Thomas Family Drama Club? Sadie asked, sipping her iced tea. I shook my head. Nothing direct. I've cut them off completely. No calls, no emails, nothing. It's surprisingly peaceful. Good for you, she said, a genuine smile on her face. You deserve that peace. We both knew the rumors, of course. They filtered through the small town grapevine, snippets from mutual acquaintances who couldn't resist sharing. Francesca's social media, once a vibrant, carefully curated shrine to her perfect life, was gone. Deleted. The influencer persona, shattered. Rumor had it she was back living with Lauren, a stark contrast to the independent, glamorous life she'd projected. She was reportedly working at a high-end boutique in the city now, a job that didn't require a public persona. No one, not a single person, spoke of the wedding. It was as if it had never happened, a collective erasure of a very public humiliation. My own life, meanwhile, was expanding. The memoir, Keep the Car and Other Lies My Family Told Me, was coming along slowly but surely. It was a cathartic process, translating the raw emotion of a lifetime into carefully chosen words. My freelance business had also taken an unexpected turn. A referral from a former client had led to a major project with a European tech company. The time difference was a challenge, but the work was stimulating, the pay excellent, and the clients genuinely valued my expertise. I was consulting for them full-time, remotely of course. My income had more than doubled. I'd started pampering myself in small, deliberate ways. A weekly massage, a subscription to a gourmet coffee service, new art for my walls. Things I'd always put off, always told myself I didn't need. It wasn't about extravagance. It was about acknowledging my own worth, something I'd neglected for too long. I was building a life that was entirely mine, on my terms, without seeking anyone else's approval or validation. You know, Sadie said, breaking the comfortable silence, it's funny how things work out. They tried to make you small, and you just grew bigger. I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached my eyes. I may work from home, I said, looking out at the quiet street, then back at my car, but trust me, I never play small again. I finished my tea, the last drops cool and sweet. Sadie packed up her empty mug. As she left, I stood up, walked to my Tesla, and opened the driver's side door. The car was still mine, a symbol of my independence, but now it was also a quiet monument to my reclamation. I backed it slowly out of the driveway, the hum of the electric engine a soft, confident purr. The fake rose and veil were long gone, but the memory of them, of what they represented, remained. A trophy, not of vengeance, but of self-respect.
The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was elbow deep in fabric samples for a client's living room. Grandma Rose was gone. My name is Scarlett, and at 24 I thought I understood loss. I was wrong. Nothing prepares you for the moment when the only person who ever made you feel chosen disappears from your world forever. I drove the 3 hours to my hometown in a fog, my hands shaking on the steering wheel every time I passed a billboard or exit sign that brought me closer to that little yellow house on Maple Street, the house where I'd spent every summer, every holiday, every moment my mother deemed me too much to handle. She went peacefully, my mother Diane said when I walked into the funeral home. No hug, no, I'm sorry for your loss. Just facts, delivered like a weather report. The service is Thursday. My brother Chandler stood beside her, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up long enough to nod in my direction before returning to whatever was more important than our grandmother's death. Can we talk about the house? I asked after the service, after the casseroles had been delivered and the last mourner had left. We were standing in Grandma Rose's kitchen, surrounded by her ceramic roosters and the smell of her lavender dish soap. Diane was already packing dishes into boxes. What about it? I'd like to keep it. The words tumbled out faster than I'd planned. I know it needs work, but I have some savings, and I could... Scarlett? Diane's voice carried that tone I knew too well, the one that meant I was being unreasonable. This house is worth money, real money. We need to be practical. I am being practical. I'm offering to buy it from the estate. Chandler looked up from his phone. With what? Your waitressing tips? Heat flooded my cheeks. I have a degree in interior design. I'm starting my own business. Starting? Diane emphasized. Chandler has a family to think about. 2 kids, a mortgage, real responsibilities. I stared at the woman who gave birth to me, searching for any trace of the warmth Grandma Rose had always shown me. This house is the only place I've ever felt like I belonged." "You'll find somewhere else to belong," Diane said, not even looking at me as she wrapped Grandma's favourite coffee mug in newspaper. "You're young. You're adaptable." 3 weeks later, I was scrolling through Facebook during my lunch break when I saw it. Piper, my old neighbour, had tagged me in a post. "Thought you'd want to see this, Scarlett." The photo showed a bright red for sale sign planted in Grandma Rose's front yard like a knife through my chest. I called Diane immediately. "Oh, that," she said when I demanded an explanation. "Russell handled everything. You know, Chandler's friend from high school? He's in real estate now. Got us a great price. You didn't even tell me." "I didn't want to upset you unnecessarily." "How much?" My voice was barely a whisper. 150,000. Can you believe it? For that little old house? I could believe it. I'd researched comparable properties in the area. I'd run the numbers a dozen times, dreaming of the renovations I could do, the memories I could preserve. "Where's the money going?" "To Chandler, of course. He needs it for the kids' college funds, and he's been wanting to get a boat for family trips." A boat. My grandmother's house, the place where she taught me to bake, where she let me paint my bedroom walls purple, where she told me I was special and smart and worthy of love, was being turned into a boat. "What about me?" I asked. Diane sighed like I was a child asking for candy at the grocery store. "Scarlett, you're single. You don't have a family to provide for? You wouldn't understand the pressure Chandler is under." The line went quiet except for the sound of my heart breaking. "Just be grateful you don't have kids to worry about," she continued. "You have freedom. That's worth more than money." I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I drove to Maple Street one last time. The house was dark, empty, already feeling like a stranger's property. I walked around to the backyard, to the old oak tree where Grandma Rose used to push me on the tire swing. There, carved into the bark, were the letters I'd etched with a kitchen knife when I was 8. SH plus GR, Che forever. I traced the fading letters with my finger and made a promise to the darkness. "Someday, I'll be back for you." I waited 2 days before confronting them. 2 days of staring at that Facebook photo, of calling in sick to work, of rehearsing what I'd say when I finally grew the spine to demand answers. I found them at Chandler's house on Saturday morning. Diane's car was in the driveway, next to a gleaming white boat trailer. The boat sat there like a monument to my stupidity. Fiberglass and chrome, where my childhood should have been. Chandler opened the door, wearing a fishing vest, grinning like he'd won the lottery, which, I guess, he had. "Scarlett, come see the new baby." He gestured toward the boat with the enthusiasm of a kid showing off a new toy. 22 feet of pure freedom. "The kids are going to love it. We need to talk." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "About what?" Diane appeared behind him, coffee mug in hand. She looked genuinely confused, like she couldn't imagine what I might be upset about. About the house, about the money, about the fact that nobody thought to include me in any decisions. Chandler's smile faded. "Include you in what? It wasn't your house. It was Grandma's house. And I asked—" "You asked for something that wasn't realistic," Diane interrupted. "We had to think about what was best for the family." "I am family." "Of course you are, honey. But you're not responsible for anyone else. Chandler has 2 children depending on him." I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. At 34, he still had that same entitled smirk he'd worn as a teenager when he'd borrowed my car without asking, when he'd used my college fund money for his wedding, when he'd moved back in with Mum after his divorce and never moved out. "Where are the kids now?" I asked. "With their mother. It's her weekend." "So you bought a boat for family trips, but the kids live with your ex-wife?" Chandler's jaw tightened. "That's temporary. Calvin's just being difficult about the custody arrangement." "Maybe because you haven't paid child support in 3 months," Diane said under her breath. "Mum!" "What?" "It's true. That's why you needed the money so badly." I stared at them both. "So, Grandma's house paid for your boat and your back child support?" "It paid for Chandler's future," Diane snapped. "Something you clearly don't understand because you've never had to put anyone else first. I put Grandma first. Every summer, every holiday. When you were too busy with Chandler's baseball games to visit her, I was there. That was your choice? It was the only choice I had if I wanted to spend time with family who actually wanted me around. The words hung in the air like smoke. Diane's face went white, then red. How dare you? I have always supported you. When? When you forgot my graduation. When you didn't come to my college orientation because Chandler had a hangover and needed you to drive him to work. When you gave away the one thing I asked for without even telling me. You're being dramatic, Chandler said. It's just a house. It wasn't just a house to me. Well, maybe that's the problem, Diane said. You put too much meaning into things. People, places. You always have. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, crack. Like ice before it shatters completely. You're right, I said quietly. I do put too much meaning into things. Like thinking my family might consider my feelings before making decisions that affect me. Scarlett, I'm moving? The words surprised even me. I hadn't planned to say them, but suddenly they felt like the only truth in the room. Moving where? Diane asked. Away from here. Away from this. I gestured between the three of us. I'm done pretending this works. You're overreacting, Chandler said. It's not like we can give you the money now. It's spent. I looked at the boat again, then back at my brother. I'm not asking for money. Then what do you want? I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab that coffee mug from my mother's hands and throw it against the wall. I wanted to key his precious boat and slash the tires on the trailer. Instead, I walked away. Scarlett, don't be like this, Diane called after me. You're family. We love you. I stopped at my car door and turned back. They were standing there, mother and son, looking annoyed rather than sorry, looking like I was the problem they needed to solve. No, I said. You love the idea of me, the convenient version who doesn't ask for anything and doesn't expect to be treated like she matters. I got in my car and drove away, leaving them standing in the driveway next to their shiny new boat. That night, I started researching cities where interior designers could make real money, places where nobody knew my name or my history, places where I could build something that belonged only to me. 7 years, 2 jobs, 1 plan. I moved to Austin with 3 suitcases and a burning need to prove everyone wrong. The first year was brutal, waiting tables at night, working as a design assistant during the day, sleeping on an air mattress in a studio apartment that smelled like the previous tenant's cat. You look like hell, Ariel said one morning as I stumbled into the design firm where we both worked. She was the only person who'd bothered to learn my name in the 6 months I'd been there. Thanks. Really what every girl wants to hear. I'm serious. When's the last time you took a day off? I couldn't remember. Days blurred together. Client meetings, fabric runs, restaurant shifts that ended at midnight, then up at 6 to do it all again. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running on fumes and spite. She wasn't wrong. Spite had become my primary fuel source, along with gas station coffee and the occasional protein bar. Look, Ariel continued. I've been thinking about starting my own staging company. You interested? I stopped sorting fabric samples. Seriously? Dead serious. I've got some connections. You've got the eye, and we both have the hunger. What do you say? 3 months later, we were sitting in our first real office, a converted warehouse space that cost more than my childhood home's mortgage, but felt like freedom. Howard and Associates Design. Ariel read from the business cards that had just arrived. Has a nice ring to it. Associates makes it sound bigger than it is. Fake it till you make it, baby. Our first big break came 18 months later. Marcus Webb, the actor from that vampire TV show, needed his Hollywood Hills mansion staged for sale. The listing agent specifically asked for you, Ariel said, waving the contract. Apparently someone recommended your work. The house was a nightmare, all black leather and chrome, like a nightclub had exploded in a residential space. But underneath the terrible choices, I could see the bones of something beautiful. This is going to take everything we have, I told Ariel as we walked through the echoing rooms. Good thing we have everything to give. We worked 16-hour days for 3 weeks, I maxed out 2 credit cards on furniture rentals and accessories. The night before the photo shoot, we were still hanging artwork at 2 a.m. "Think it'll work?" Ariel asked, collapsing onto the stage sofa in the living room. I looked around at what we'd created. Warm, inviting spaces that felt like home instead of a bachelor pad fever dream. "It has to." The house sold in 4 days for $2 million over asking. "Holy shit," Ariel said, staring at the check the listing agent had just handed us. "Holy actual shit." "Language," I said, but I was grinning too. That success led to others. Word spread in the tight-knit world of high-end real estate. Within 2 years, we had a waiting list of clients and a team of 12 employees. But through it all, I never forgot about Maple Street. I set up Google alerts for the address, checked property records obsessively, even drove by during my rare visits home. The house looked sadder each time. Peeling paint, overgrown yard, windows that seemed to stare at me accusingly. "You're torturing yourself," Piper said during one of our occasional phone calls. She still lived in our hometown, working as a teacher, and she'd had a crush on me in high school that everyone knew about except me. "I just want to know it's okay." "It's not okay. It's been empty for 3 years. The people who bought it were investors who never moved in. Now it just sits there, rotting. Chandler's boat's still running. Last I heard, he sold it to pay for his lawyer. Messy divorce, apparently. Calvin took him for everything." I felt a flicker of satisfaction at that news, followed immediately by guilt for feeling satisfied. "What about you?" Piper asked. "Still conquering the design world?" "Something like that. Ever think about coming home?" This is home now. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. Austin was where I worked, where I'd built my success, where I'd proven I could survive without them. But home was still a yellow house with a tire swing and the ghost of a woman who'd loved me unconditionally. The alert came on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing proposals for a new project. One line of text that changed everything. 1247 Maple Street, foreclosure auction, opening bid $85,000. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. "Ariel," I called across the office. "Cancel my appointments for next week." "Why? What's wrong?" I printed the foreclosure notice and held it up like a winning lottery ticket. "I'm going home." The courthouse steps were crowded with vultures. Investors in cheap suits clutching clipboards, contractors calculating renovation costs, and a handful of locals who'd come for the entertainment. I sat in my rental car across the street, watching through designer sunglasses. The woman who'd left town 7 years ago in a beat-up Honda would never have been able to afford the BMW I was driving now, or the tailored blazer I wore, or the LLC I'd created specifically for this moment. Scarlett Howard Enterprises, I'd named it. Let them figure out what that meant. Russell stood at the front of the crowd, older now, but still recognizable. Chandler's old friend had put on weight and lost most of his hair, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never had his childhood sold out from under him. "Next property," Russell announced, consulting his tablet. 1247 Maple Street, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 1952. Needs significant work. Opening bid is $85,000. I stepped out of the car and walked across the street, my heels clicking against the pavement. A few heads turned. I was overdressed for a foreclosure auction, and I knew it. "Do I hear 85? Russell called out. A man in work boots raised his hand. 85. 90, called someone else. I waited. Let them think they were in control. 100, the contractor said. 110. 120? The bidding slowed around 130. The contractor dropped out, shaking his head. Only 2 investors remained, going back and forth in $5,000 increments. 150, one of them said. 155, countered the other. 160. A pause. The second investor was calculating, deciding if the profit margin was still worth it. Going once at 160, Russell said. I raised my hand. 200,000. The crowd turned to stare. Russell's eyes found mine, and I saw a flicker of recognition cross his face before he quickly looked away. 200,000 from the lady in the back. Do I hear 210? Silence. The investors were already walking away, muttering about crazy rich people driving up prices. Going once, going twice. Russell's gavel came down. Sold to bidder number 47 for $200,000. I walked to the registration table, where a clerk was waiting with paperwork. Congratulations, she said. That's quite a property you just bought. Yes, I said, signing the documents with steady hands. It is. Russell approached as I finished the paperwork. Scarlett? Scarlett Howard? Hello, Russell. I thought that was you. Wow, you look... He gestured vaguely at my outfit. Different. Success will do that. I heard you moved to Austin. Interior design, right? Something like that. I folded the deed and slipped it into my purse. Thanks for handling the sale all those years ago. Really worked out well for everyone. His face reddened. Look, about that, no need to explain. Business is business, right? I walked away before he could respond, leaving him standing there with his mouth half open. The drive to Maple Street took 5 minutes. 5 minutes to travel back through 7 years of anger and ambition, and sleepless nights fueled by the memory of being dismissed. The house looked worse than I'd imagined. The yellow paint had faded to a sickly beige, shutters hung crooked, and the front porch sagged like a broken smile. Weeds had claimed the flower beds where Grandma Rose used to grow her prize-winning roses. I sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the wreckage of my childhood sanctuary. Then I got out and walked to the backyard. The oak tree was still there, massive and patient. The tire swing had rotted away, but the branch where it hung remained strong. I found the carved letters, weathered but still visible. SH plus GR, Tham forever. I traced them with my finger, the same way I had 7 years ago. I kept my promise, I whispered to the tree, to the ghost of my grandmother, to the little girl who'd believed family meant something. My phone buzzed. A text from Ariel. How did it go? I typed back, I'm home. The next message came immediately. What's the plan? I looked up at the house, my house now, and smiled for the first time in days. Renovation first, then we throw a party. What kind of party? I walked back to the front yard, already envisioning the transformation. The fresh paint, the restored porch, the flower beds blooming again with life. The kind that reminds people what they threw away. That night, I checked into the nicest hotel in town and called the best contractor in the state. Money was no object. Time was no concern. I had 7 years of success to spend and a lifetime of being overlooked to make up for. The real work was just beginning. 3 months later, the house looked like something from a magazine spread. Not the cold, sterile kind, the warm, lived-in kind that made you want to curl up with a book and never leave. I stood in the kitchen, running my hand along the restored farmhouse sink where Grandma Rose used to wash dishes while humming old hymns. Every detail had been carefully chosen. The subway tile backsplash, the butcher block counters, the vintage light fixtures that cast the same golden glow I remembered from childhood. The caterers are set up, Ariel said, appearing in the doorway with her tablet. Bars stocked, flowers are gorgeous, and the photographer is getting some final shots of the dining room. What about the centerpiece? That's the real showstopper. We walked to the dining room, where a massive cross-section of oak sat in the center of the restored farmhouse table. The tree had been damaged in a storm 2 weeks ago. Half of it had to come down. But instead of hauling it away, I'd had it cut and polished into a stunning piece of natural art. The carved letters were still visible, preserved under layers of clear resin. SH plus GR, Hun forever. But I'd added something new. Burned into the wood with perfect precision were the words, "For the chosen child." Think they'll get the message? Ariel asked. They'll get it? The invitations had gone out under my company letterhead. Howard and Associates Design cordially invites you to the grand reopening of a fully restored 1952 craftsman home. Light refreshments and tours provided. RSVP required. I'd sent them to half the town, including my mother and brother. The address was listed at the bottom in small print, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. Guests are starting to arrive, Ariel said, checking her phone. You ready for this? I smoothed my black dress, Simple, elegant, expensive, and nodded. Let's do this. The first hour was perfect. Neighbours I remembered from childhood wandered through the rooms, marvelling at the transformation. Mrs. Patterson from next door kept touching the restored crown moulding and shaking her head in amazement. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she said, squeezing my hand. "She always said this house had good bones." She was right about a lot of things. I positioned myself near the front window where I could watch the street. At exactly 7:30, Diane's car pulled up to the curb. "Showtime," I murmured to Ariel. My mother and brother walked up the front path, both dressed like they were attending a business function. Diane wore her best church dress, and Chandler had actually put on a tie. They looked confused, checking the address against their phones. I slipped into the kitchen and watched them through the security monitor I'd had installed. They entered through the front door, accepting champagne flutes from the catering staff. "This is beautiful," I heard Diane say to another guest. "Do you know who owns it now?" "Some design company from Austin," the woman replied. "They've done an incredible job." Chandler was examining the restored hardwood floors. Must have cost a fortune. They moved through the living room, the bedrooms, making polite conversation with other guests. I tracked their progress on the monitor, waiting for the moment they'd enter the dining room. It happened at 8:15. Diane walked in first, drawn by the sound of laughter from a group admiring the built-in china cabinet I'd had restored. She was nodding along with their conversation. When her eyes fell on the centerpiece, I watched her face change. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that looked like fear. "Chandler," she called, her voice tight. "Come here." My brother ambled over, champagne flute in hand, still smiling at something someone had said. He followed Diane's gaze to the table. The smile died on his face. "This can't be," Diane whispered. Other guests were starting to notice their reaction. The room grew quieter. Chandler leaned closer to read the burned inscription. "For the chosen child. What the hell does that mean?" "It means," I said, stepping into the doorway, "welcome home." The room went completely silent. Every head turned toward me, but I only had eyes for my mother and brother. Diane's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor I'd spent a fortune restoring. "Scarlett?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Hello, Mom. Chandler." I walked into the room like I owned it, which, of course, I did. "Thank you both for coming. I wasn't sure you'd remember the address." "What is this?" Chandler demanded. "What are you doing here?" "I live here now." I gestured around the room. "Well, technically, I own here. I bought it at foreclosure auction 3 months ago." "That's impossible," Diane said. "You don't have that kind of money." I smiled. "Turns out I do." The other guests were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Small-town drama was better than cable TV. "You bought Grandma's house?" Chandler's face was turning red. "Why?" "Because," I said, running my hand along the oak centerpiece. "It was the only thing I ever asked for." The other guests had slowly filtered out, sensing the family drama brewing. Now it was just the three of us in the dining room, with Ariel hovering in the kitchen doorway like a protective guard dog. "You can't just buy a house out of spite," Chandler said, pacing around the oak centerpiece like it was evidence in a crime scene. "I didn't buy it out of spite. I bought it because it was for sale." I picked up a piece of the broken champagne flute and set it on the side table. "Again." "What's that supposed to mean?" Diane asked. "It means this house has been sold twice now. First time the money went to buy your son a boat. This time I paid cash." Chandler stopped pacing. "How much?" $200,000 at auction, another $300,000 in renovations. I watched his face do the math. $500,000 total, if you're keeping track." "That's impossible," Diane repeated. "You're a waitress." "Was a waitress? Now I own a design firm that stages $1 million homes for celebrities." I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo from our latest project, a tech billionaire's Malibu mansion. "This sold for $12 million last month. We got a 6-figure commission." Chandler's face went pale. "You're lying." "Google me." He actually did it, right there in front of everyone. I watched his expression change as he scrolled through articles about my company, photos from design magazines, client testimonials. Holy shit, he whispered. Language, Diane said automatically, but she was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. There's more, I said. I'm not keeping this as a personal residence. What do you mean? Diane asked. I'm turning it into a transitional housing centre for women who've been left financially devastated by divorce or abandonment. I smiled at Chandler. Women like your ex-wife? Calvin? His voice cracked on her name. She applied last week. Turns out being 3 months behind on child support while your ex-husband buys toys puts you in a tough spot financially. You contacted Calvin? She contacted me, saw the news story about the renovation, and recognised the address. Small world. Diane sank into one of the dining chairs I'd carefully selected to match Grandma Rose's old set. This is insane. You're doing this to hurt us. I'm doing this to help women who've been discarded by their families. I looked directly at her. Women who've been told they don't matter because they don't have the right kind of responsibilities. That's not what I said. You're single. You don't have a family. You wouldn't understand. I quoted her words back perfectly. Ring any bells? Chandler was still staring at his phone. It says here your company is worth millions. Conservative estimate? And you're giving it all up for this? He gestured around the room. For revenge. I'm not giving up anything. This is an expansion. Howard and Associates is opening a non-profit division. I walked to the window that looked out on the backyard. The women who stay here will learn job skills, financial planning, self-sufficiency. Everything I had to teach myself after my family wrote me off. We didn't write you off, Diane protested. You sold my inheritance to buy your son a boat. It wasn't your inheritance. It was your grandmother's house, and we made the decision that was best for the family. Which family? I turned back to face them. Because I'm family too, and nobody asked what was best for me. The front door opened, and Piper walked in carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a sundress that made her look exactly like she had in high school. Sorry I'm late, she said, then stopped when she saw the tension in the room. Oh, should I come back later? Perfect timing, I said. Piper, you remember my mother and brother? Of course. Hi, Mrs. Howard. Chandler. She set the wine on the counter and looked around the room. Wow, Scarlett, this place is incredible. Your grandmother would be so happy. Would she? Diane asked bitterly. Would she be happy that her granddaughter bought her house just to spite her family? Piper's eyebrows shot up. Spite? This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever done for this house, for this neighbourhood. She looked at me with something that might have been admiration. You brought it back to life. She's turning it into a homeless shelter, Chandler said. Transitional housing, I corrected. And it's not for homeless women. It's for women whose families failed them. Like Calvin, Piper said quietly. I heard about the divorce, about the money problems. Chandler's jaw tightened. That's none of your business. It became my business when you mortgaged your house to cover your gambling debts and left your kid's mother scrambling to pay rent. The room went dead silent. How do you know about the mortgage? Diane asked. I smiled. Small town. People talk. Chandler's face went from pale to red to something approaching purple. You've been spying on me. I've been living my life. You've been making yours everyone else's problem. I poured myself a glass of wine from Piper's bottle. Calvin told me some interesting things when she applied for housing. Like what? Diane asked, though she looked like she didn't want to know. Like how Chandler convinced you I was having mental health issues, how he said I was unstable and obsessed with the past, and that giving me the house would be enabling my delusions. The silence that followed was deafening. Is that true? Piper asked, looking between Chandler and Diane. Diane's hands were shaking. He was concerned about you. We both were. Concerned about what, exactly? You were so attached to that house. It wasn't healthy. What wasn't healthy was a 24-year-old woman asking for the one place she'd ever felt loved and being told she was crazy for wanting it. Chandler finally found his voice. You were obsessed. You still are. Look at this place. You've turned it into some kind of shrine. I've turned it into a home. Something you clearly don't understand, since you lost yours to a bookie. How do you know about... He stopped himself, but it was too late. About the gambling, about the second mortgage, about the fact that you owe more money than this house is worth. I set down my wine glass. Calvin talks when she's worried about her kid's future. Diane stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. This is enough. I don't know what you think you're accomplishing here, but I'm accomplishing exactly what I set out to accomplish. I walked to the built-in china cabinet and opened the glass doors. Inside were Grandma Rose's dishes, the good china she only used for holidays. I bought these back from the estate sale, paid 3 times what they're worth. You bought back Grandma's dishes? I bought back everything I could find. The rocking chair from her bedroom, the quilt she made for my 16th birthday, the photo albums you threw away because they were just taking up space. Diane's eyes filled with tears. I didn't throw them away. I donated them. To the thrift store downtown, where I found them marked at 50 cents each. I pulled out one of the photo albums and opened it to a picture of Grandma Rose and me baking cookies. 50 cents for my childhood memories. We didn't know you'd want them, Diane whispered. You didn't ask. Piper cleared her throat. Maybe I should go. Stay, I said. You're part of this story too. How? Because you're the only person from my childhood who ever made me feel like I mattered. Who called to check on me after I moved? Who told me the truth about what was happening here? Piper's cheeks flushed pink. Scarlett, I know you had feelings for me in high school. I was too young and too messed up to see it then, but I see it now. Chandler made a disgusted noise. Great. Now we're having a lesbian revelation in Grandma's dining room. Shut up. Diane snapped at him, then looked at me. Is that what this is about? You're gay and you're angry we didn't know? This isn't about my sexuality, Mom. This is about the fact that you chose him over me every single time, and I finally got tired of pretending it didn't hurt. I never chose him over you. The house says otherwise. The money says otherwise. The fact that you're here defending his gambling addiction instead of apologizing for selling my inheritance says otherwise. It wasn't your inheritance. Then what was it? What was I to her? What was I to you? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been burning for years. Diane's voice was barely a whisper when she finally answered. You were the strong one. You were the one who didn't need us. I was 8 years old when Dad left. I needed you then. You had your grandmother. Because you gave me to her every chance you got. Because she loved you better than I knew how to. The admission hit the room like a physical blow. Even Chandler looked shocked. Mom? He started. But Diane held up her hand. It's true. Rose knew how to love you. I only knew how to worry about you. And Chandler... She looked at her son with something that might have been disappointment. Chandler knew how to need me. So you chose the one who needed you over the one who loved you? I said. I chose wrong. Diane's tears were falling freely now. I chose wrong, and I don't know how to fix it. I looked at this woman who gave birth to me, who raised me, who failed me in ways I was still discovering. You can't fix it, I said quietly, but you can stop making it worse. The ribbon-cutting ceremony happened on a Tuesday morning in October. The local newspaper sent a photographer, and the mayor showed up with one of those oversized scissors that politicians love. Calvin stood beside me on the front porch, holding one end of the red ribbon. Her kids, my niece and nephew, who barely knew me, flanked her on either side, dressed in their school clothes and looking slightly confused about why this was important. Ready? I asked her. Ready. The scissors cut through the ribbon, and a small crowd of neighbours and supporters applauded. The sign I'd commissioned was unveiled next to the front door. Rose's Place. Transitional housing for women and families. Your grandmother would be proud, Mrs. Patterson said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I hoped she was right. Diane hadn't come to the ceremony. Neither had Chandler. I'd invited them both, but the silence from their end had been answer enough. The first residents move in next week, I told the reporter, who'd stayed behind for an interview. We can house up to 6 families at a time, with an average stay of 18 months while they get back on their feet. And you're funding this entirely through your design business? The initial investment, yes, but we're also applying for grants and seeking community partnerships. I gestured toward Calvin, who was helping her kids explore the backyard. Our first resident will also serve as our house manager. She has a background in social work. After the crowd dispersed, Piper and I sat on the front porch swing I'd had installed where Grandma Rose's old glider used to be. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Strange. Good. Expensive." I laughed. I just spent $500,000 on a house I could have had for free 7 years ago. "But you wouldn't have been ready for it 7 years ago." She was right. The girl who'd left this town had been broken, angry, desperate to prove herself. The woman who'd come back had the resources and emotional strength to actually make a difference. "Calvin told me something interesting yesterday," I said. "What's that?" Chandler called her. "He's in some kind of treatment program now, gambling addiction counseling." "That's good, right?" "Maybe." She also said he asked about the kids, about seeing them more. And she said she'd think about it, if he stays clean and gets his finances sorted out. Piper was quiet for a moment. "What about your mum?" I'd been wondering the same thing. Diane had called twice since the party, but I'd let both calls go to voicemail. Her messages were rambling, apologetic, full of words like misunderstanding and, "If only you'd told me." "I don't know yet." "You don't have to decide today." "I know." A car pulled up to the curb, a beat-up Honda that looked a lot like the one I'd driven when I left town. A woman got out, followed by 2 young children. She looked nervous, clutching a folder of paperwork against her chest. "That's Maria," I said, recognizing our second applicant. "She's moving in Thursday." We watched her walk up the front path, her kids trailing behind her with wide eyes. "Ms. Howard," she called out. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you again. This place, it's going to change everything for us." That's the idea. After Maria and her children left, Piper and I sat in comfortable silence as the sun set behind the oak tree in the backyard. "I should probably head home," she said eventually. "Or you could stay for dinner. I'm making Grandma Rose's pot roast recipe." Piper smiled. "I'd like that." As we walked inside, I caught my reflection in the front window. For a moment, I saw both versions of myself. The girl who'd carved her name in a tree, desperate to belong somewhere, and the woman who'd bought that tree back and turned it into something beautiful. My phone buzzed with a text from Ariel. "Saw the news coverage. You look happy." I typed back, "I am." And for the first time in 7 years, I meant it completely. The house was full of light and laughter again. Not the way it had been with Grandma Rose. That was a different kind of love, a different time. This was something new, something I'd built with my own hands and my own heart. In the kitchen, I pulled out Grandma's old recipe box and found the card for pot roast, written in her careful handwriting. At the bottom, she'd added a note I'd never noticed before. "Love isn't something you inherit. It's something you choose to give." I smiled and started gathering ingredients. Outside, the oak tree stood guard over the house, its branches strong enough to hold whatever came next.
The email hit my inbox like a punch to the gut. Not the email itself, but the attachments, screenshots from some local community group Elizabeth, my mother, frequented. Maureen refused the family home. One post read, her words dripping with manufactured sorrow. She just walked away from it all. I'm Maureen, I'm 32, and I walked away from a lot of things 14 years ago, but the family home wasn't one of them. I was 18 when I packed a single suitcase and bought a one-way ticket across the country. My mother, Elizabeth, then 44, had made it clear for years that I was a burden, a disappointment, and that my presence was an inconvenience. Moving out wasn't a choice, it was a desperate escape. For years I'd kept her at arm's length. A polite, infrequent phone call, a forced smile at a distant cousin's wedding, but mostly silence. It was the only way to protect myself from the insidious way she twisted reality, a skill she'd honed since my childhood. I remember one Christmas, I was maybe 10. I'd spent weeks making her a lopsided clay mug in art class. I was so proud. I presented it to her beaming. She took it, examined it, and then set it down with a sigh. "Oh, honey," she'd said, her voice dripping with pity, "you know I only drink from porcelain." But it's the thought that counts, I guess. Later that day, she told my aunt, loud enough for me to hear, "Maureen just doesn't understand what I like. She's always been a bit unobservant." My mug ended up in the back of a cupboard, forgotten. She never yelled, never screamed. She just made you feel like your existence was a fundamental misunderstanding of her needs. That was Elizabeth. The screenshots were from Olive, my cousin, who's 29 now. Olive was one of the few family members who still spoke to me, and even fewer who ever questioned Elizabeth's narrative. "Hey, saw this," Olive's message read. "Thought you should know, she's really laying it on thick." I stared at Elizabeth's words, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. Refused the family home? The house I grew up in, the one my grandparents had owned before her, the one I'd always loved despite the emotional minefield it contained. The house she'd always promised would be ours someday. It was a lie, of course. Everything with Elizabeth was a lie, carefully constructed to make her the victim, the long-suffering matriarch. But this lie felt different. It felt bolder, more public. "What is she even talking about?" I typed back to Olive, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "I haven't talked to her about the house in years. She never offered it to me." Olive replied almost instantly. "I know, right? But she's telling everyone you were offered it multiple times and you just didn't want the responsibility. She's even saying she had to sell it because you abandoned her." My jaw tightened. Abandoned her? I built a life across the country, a life free from her suffocating manipulation. I had a good job, a quiet apartment, and a sense of peace I'd never known under her roof. This wasn't abandonment, it was self-preservation. But the house was different. It was the last tangible link to a childhood that, despite Elizabeth, still held some fragmented good memories. My grandparents' garden, the creaky stairs, the view of the old oak tree from my bedroom window. A cold dread settled over me. If she was claiming I refused it, did that mean she had actually sold it? And if so, why was she lying about the circumstances? I closed the messaging app and opened my browser. I knew the address by heart. Public property records are surprisingly easy to access online. I typed in the street name, the house number. My fingers trembled slightly as the search results loaded. There it was. My childhood home. The address, the parcel number, the last sale date. My eyes scanned the details, searching for the sale price. And then I saw it. Sale price, $7. My breath hitched. $7? That couldn't be right. A typo, maybe. I refreshed the page, checked another public records site. Same thing. $7. It was a joke, a slap in the face. I scrolled down further, looking at the transaction history. The buyer's name was listed, but I didn't recognize it immediately. Then, a second entry, just weeks later. Another sale. This time, the price made my stomach drop into my shoes. Sale price, count 200,000 ringgit. $1.2 million. My childhood home, sold for $7, then flipped for $1.25 million just weeks later. And Elizabeth was out there, on social media, telling everyone I had refused it. The knot in my stomach turned into a hard, cold stone. This wasn't just another one of Elizabeth's petty lies. This was something far darker. This was fraud. And I knew with a chilling certainty that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. The $7 sale price stared back at me, mocking. Then the $1.2 million flip just weeks later. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't from fear. It was a cold, simmering rage. This wasn't just a lie, it was a calculated theft. My mother, Elizabeth, 58, had always been a master manipulator, but this was a whole new level of brazen. I snatched up my phone and called Olive, my cousin. She answered on the second ring, her voice a little sleepy. It was late where she was, but I couldn't wait. "Olive, you will not believe this," I blurted out, skipping any pleasantries. The house. I looked up the public records. She sold it for $7. There was a beat of silence on the other end. $7? Maureen, are you serious? Olive, 29, sounded wide awake now. Dead serious, and then it was flipped weeks later for 1.2 million. 1.2 million, Olive, while she's out there telling everyone I refused it. Oh my God, Olive whispered. Who bought it for $7? Was it a family transfer or something? No, that's the other thing. The buyer's name is Scott Ford. Another pause. Scott Ford? Wait, Elizabeth's friend Scott? The one she's always going on about, the dear friend who helped her with financial advice? My mind reeled. Scott Ford, of course. He was 61, a man Elizabeth had known for years, always hovering in the background, offering unsolicited wisdom, and occasionally lending her money for things she claimed were emergencies. I remembered him as a slick, overly tanned guy with a booming laugh that never quite reached his eyes. Elizabeth always introduced him as just a friend, but there was always something a little too cosy about their interactions, even when I was a kid. Yeah, that's Scott, I confirmed, my voice tight. The one she always said was like family, the one who was always helping her out. That explains so much, Olive said, her voice grim. Remember how she used to talk about creative solutions for taxes or finding loopholes for property? She'd always bring him up. I did remember. Flashbacks hit me. Elizabeth, sitting at the kitchen table maybe 5 years ago, on the phone with Scott. She'd be whispering, but her voice carried. No, we can't put it in my name, Scott. It has to look like a clean break. Maureen. Well, Maureen won't be an issue. She's across the country. At the time, I'd dismissed it as typical Elizabeth drama, probably about some minor financial scheme. Now, it felt like a chilling premonition. And she was always so cagey about the house after I moved out, I added. Any time I asked if she was going to sell it, she'd get defensive, say it was too complicated or not the right time. She never once mentioned selling it for $7 to Scott. Because it wasn't a real sale, was it? Olive mused. It was a transfer, a way to get it out of her name without it looking like a gift or a sale that would trigger taxes or something. And then Scott flips it. And they split the profit. That's the only thing that makes sense, I agreed, my mind racing. But why? Why now? And why the public lie about me refusing it? Well, there have been rumours, Olive said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Elizabeth's been looking at luxury beach condos, like really high-end stuff. My mom, Aunt Harmony, 55, mentioned it to me last week. She said Elizabeth was talking about finally getting the life she deserved and how she was almost there with a down payment on a place with an ocean view. A luxury beach condo, of course. While I was busting my arse in a small apartment, she was plotting to live large off my inheritance, off my childhood home. The audacity was breathtaking. Okay, so it all connects, I said, a plan starting to form in my mind. She needed a chunk of cash, and this was her way of getting it without anyone questioning her. And the lie about me? That's just classic Elizabeth, making herself the victim, covering her tracks. So what are you going to do? Olive asked, her voice full of a mixture of shock and concern. I don't know yet, I admitted, though a fierce resolve was hardening inside me. But I'm not letting this go. This isn't just about the money, Olive. This is about her trying to erase me, to rewrite history, to steal my past and profit from it, and then lie about it to the entire family. I hung up with Olive, my thoughts a whirlwind. I needed more proof. I started digging through old emails, old cloud backups, anything. I was methodical, searching for keywords: Scott, house, property, sale, money. Hours passed. My eyes were burning, but I kept going. And then I found it. Tucked away in an old phone backup, a text message from Elizabeth. It was from about 3 years ago, a time when she was still occasionally sending me random, often passive-aggressive messages. This one was clearly meant for someone else, probably Scott. It had been sent to me by mistake, a jumble of letters and numbers, followed by a sentence that made my blood run cold. "Scott'll get it in his name, MBD. Maureen doesn't matter." MBD, no big deal. Maureen doesn't matter. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a confession. A casual dismissal of my existence, my rights, my connection to the home, all wrapped up in a tidy little package of fraud. This wasn't just about the house anymore, this was personal, and I had the receipt. "Scott'll get it in his name, MBD. Maureen doesn't matter." That text message, accidentally sent to me by my mother, Elizabeth, 3 years ago, was the final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't just proof, it was a declaration, a casual dismissal of my existence, my rights, my connection to the home. It solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about the house anymore, this was personal, and I had the receipt. The next morning I was on the phone, not with Olive this time, but with a real estate attorney. I'd spent the night researching, looking for someone sharp, methodical, and with a reputation for handling complex property disputes. I found Zachary Young. His online profile listed him as 37, with a focus on real estate and fraud cases, and glowing reviews that emphasised his calm demeanour and fierce courtroom presence. He sounded exactly like what I needed. His assistant scheduled a virtual consultation for that afternoon. I spent the intervening hours meticulously organising everything: the screenshots Olive sent, the public property records showing the $7 sale and the $1.2 million flip, and most damning of all, Elizabeth's accidental text. I even dug up old photos of the house, proof of my childhood there, though I knew that was more for my own emotional validation than legal necessity. When Zachary Young's face appeared on my screen, he looked exactly as his profile described: composed, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He listened patiently, taking notes as I laid out the entire story, from Elizabeth's online lies to the suspicious property records and the damning text. "So your mother, Elizabeth Dunn, transferred the property to a Scott Ford for a nominal fee of $7, Zachary summarised, his voice calm. "And then Mr. Ford flipped it for a significant profit weeks later. And you have this text message suggesting a pre-arranged agreement to cut you out." "Exactly," I confirmed, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. The house was my grandparents' before her. It was always understood it would pass down. She never offered it to me, never discussed selling it. Just suddenly, it's gone, and she's lying about why. "And you were 18 when you moved out, correct?" he asked. "So you were a legal adult, but still very much impacted by this, especially given the family history of the property." "Yes," I said. "I was 18 and I needed to get away from her, but that doesn't mean I abandoned my claim to the house." She never even mentioned selling it until after the fact, and then only to lie about it. Zachary nodded slowly. "This looks like a clear case of fraudulent transfer, potentially conspiracy, and possibly even forgery if your name was involved in any official documents without your consent. We need to dig deeper into the deed transfer itself." Often, in cases like this, they'll try to create a paper trail that looks legitimate on the surface. He explained the process. They would start by subpoenaing all the documents related to both transactions, the $7 sale and the $1.2 million flip. They'd look for any waivers, affidavits, or anything that might have required my signature or acknowledgement. "If they forged your signature on a waiver of ownership, that's a felony," Zachary stated, his eyes sharp. That's where we hit them hardest. Over the next few days, Zachary and his team worked fast. They pulled every piece of paper related to the property, and then the call came. "Maureen," Zachary's voice was grave, "we found it. A waiver of ownership document, supposedly signed by you, relinquishing your claim to the property. It's dated 2 years ago." My blood ran cold. "My signature? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. But I never signed anything like that. I never even saw a document like that. No, you didn't, he confirmed. It's a digital signature, but it's clearly falsified. The metadata shows it was created on a device not associated with you, and the IP address traces back to a location near your mother's home. We have a forensic expert who can confirm it's a forgery. A forged digital signature. Elizabeth had gone that far. It was a calculated criminal act. The casual "Maureen doesn't matter" text now felt even more chilling. She truly believed she could get away with anything, but there was more. As I was going through my old phone backups, looking for anything related to the house, I stumbled upon a folder of old voice recordings. I'd forgotten I even had them. They were from an old smartphone I used years ago, a habit I had of recording important calls or conversations, mostly for my own memory, never imagining they'd be used for something like this. I started listening, scrolling through dates. And then I found it. A call from roughly 4 years ago, between Elizabeth and someone whose voice I didn't recognise, but it sounded like a lawyer or a financial advisor. Elizabeth's voice, clear as day. So, if I transfer it to a trust, or a friend, for a symbolic amount, does that avoid the inheritance tax later? And what about Maureen? Does she have any claim if it's not technically sold to a third party but just transferred? The other voice, a man's, was muffled but discernible. It's a grey area. A gift could be challenged. A sale, even a low one, makes it harder. But if there's a clear paper trail, and if the beneficiary, in this case your daughter, has no documented claim or has signed a waiver, it's much cleaner. Elizabeth again. And the waiver, can that be done remotely? Digitally? The muffled voice. Yes, with proper authentication, but it must be legally binding. Elizabeth. Right, legally binding, of course. Her tone was dismissive, almost amused. I played the recording for Zachary. He listened, his expression unreadable. When it finished, he leaned back. This is excellent, Maureen. This shows premeditation. It shows she was actively seeking ways to circumvent legal processes and cut you out. Combined with the forged waiver, the text message, and the property records, we have a very strong case for fraud, conspiracy, and potentially felony forgery. The anger that had been simmering inside me for days finally reached a boiling point. My mother, Elizabeth, had not just sold my home. She had meticulously planned to steal it, to erase my connection to it, and then lied about it to the entire family. She had used my trust, my absence, and her own twisted charm to commit a crime. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from a family group chat. Elizabeth had just posted a photo. She was smiling, arm in arm with Scott Ford, standing on a balcony overlooking a sparkling ocean. The caption read, "Finally ours, so excited for this new chapter." My new chapter was just beginning too, and it was going to be a reckoning. Finally ours, so excited for this new chapter. Elizabeth's post, flaunting her new luxury condo with Scott Ford, felt like a direct taunt. She thought she was untouchable. She thought she'd won. But I had the forged waiver, the damning text, and the recording of her discussing legal loopholes. Zachary Young, my attorney, had confirmed it. We had a strong case for fraud, conspiracy, and felony forgery. The next morning, I booked a flight. It was a surprise. I hadn't been back to my hometown in years, not since I was 18, and fled Elizabeth's suffocating manipulation. Now, 14 years later, I was returning at 32, not as a defeated escapee, but as a woman armed with evidence and a burning desire for justice. I didn't tell anyone I was coming, not even Olive, my cousin, until my plane was boarding. A quick text. "Landing in a few hours. Can I crash at your place? Need your help." Olive, 29, was waiting for me at the airport, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Maureen, I can't believe you're here." "What's the plan?" The plan is to gather more evidence quietly, I said, my voice low as we walked through the bustling terminal. Zachary is working on the legal end, but I need to tie up some loose ends here, and I need your help, especially with Bella. Olive nodded. Bella Ford, Scott's daughter, why her? Zachary's research showed Bella, 34, is a real estate agent in town, I explained, and she was listed as the buyer's agent on the $1.2 million flip. That's a huge commission. It connects her directly to the fraud. So you think she was in on it? Olive asked, her brow furrowed. I think it's highly likely she was complicit even if she claims ignorance, I replied. She's a real estate agent. She would have known the $7 sale was bogus, and she profited from the flip. We need to see what she knows or what she might accidentally reveal. Can you talk to her? Maybe under the pretense of looking for a place or just catching up? Olive bit her lip. It's risky. Bella and Elizabeth are pretty close, actually. Elizabeth always loved how driven Bella was. I know, I said, but it's a risk we need to take. We need to connect Scott and Bella directly to Elizabeth, beyond just the property records. Any conversations, any hints they might have dropped. Olive agreed, albeit reluctantly. Okay, I'll figure something out. Maybe I can ask her about investment properties or something. The next day, while Olive worked on her plan, I decided to take a calculated risk. I needed to know more about the $1.2 million sale. I looked up the real estate agency listed on the public records for the flip. It was a well-known local firm. I walked in, pretending to be a potential buyer, asking about recent sales in the area, specifically mentioning the old Dunn property. A woman with sharp, kind eyes, about 45, introduced herself as Yael Burns. She was the agent who had handled the sale of my childhood home after Scott Ford had bought it for $7. I feigned casual interest, asking about the market, the speed of sales, trying to get a feel for how much she knew. She was professional, giving me general information, but nothing specific about that particular transaction. I didn't push it. I simply left my name and number, saying I was just looking for now. I didn't expect anything to come of it, but later that afternoon my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Maureen Dunn, a woman's voice asked. It was Yael Burns. My heart hammered against my ribs. Yes, this is Maureen. This is Yael Burns from real estate agency name, she said, her voice lower now, more serious. I think we need to talk, privately. I agreed, my mind racing. We arranged to meet at a quiet coffee shop on the outskirts of town. I arrived first, my nerves frayed. Yael walked in a few minutes later, carrying a large, nondescript envelope. Look, she began, sliding the envelope across the table. I saw your name on the property records from years ago, and then I saw the online drama with your mother, Elizabeth, and I put two and two together. What happened with that house? It didn't sit right with me. I opened the envelope. Inside were copies of documents, the original listing agreement for the $1.2 million sale, the purchase agreement, and most importantly, bank wire transfer confirmations. Scott Ford bought that house from your mother for $7, Yoel explained, her voice hushed. That's a red flag right there. Then just weeks later he listed it with us. The sale went through incredibly fast, too fast honestly, but my job is to sell, so I did. She pointed to the wire transfer documents. Here's what really bothered me. I keep meticulous records. Scott Ford received two large wire payments totaling $1.15 million into an account that wasn't the closing account for the house sale. And these payments, they were dated before the deed transfer from your mother to him even took place. My eyes widened. Before? Yes, Yael confirmed, her gaze steady. The first payment for $600,000 hit his account 3 days before the $7 deed transfer. The second for $550,000 hit the day before. It was like he was already paid for the flip before he even bought the house from your mother. It looked like a prearranged deal, a payout, not a legitimate sale. My mind reeled. This was it. Irrefutable proof of a conspiracy. Elizabeth had been paid her share of the $1.2 million. Before the house was even legally transferred from her name to Scott's. It wasn't just a fraudulent transfer, it was a premeditated scheme, a money laundering operation disguised as a property sale. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Yael sighed, looking tired. "Because it's wrong. I've been in this business a long time. I've seen shady deals, but this felt like a direct theft. And seeing your mother's posts online, blaming you, when I knew the real story, I couldn't just sit on it. I have a conscience." She slid a business card across the table. "My contact information. I'll testify if you need me to. I have all the original documents too." I looked at the documents, then at Yael. A whistleblower, an unexpected ally. This was more than I could have hoped for. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture of undeniable brazen fraud. Elizabeth and Scott hadn't just stolen the house. They had orchestrated a complex scheme, and now I had the evidence to prove it. The coffee shop meeting with Yael Burns, the real estate agent, had been a game changer. Her revelation about the $1.15 million wired to Scott Ford before the $7 deed transfer was the smoking gun. It proved premeditation, a clear conspiracy between Elizabeth and Scott. I had the forged waiver, the damning text, the call recording, and now a whistleblower with irrefutable financial records. Zachary Young, my attorney, would be thrilled. I spent the next few days working closely with Zachary, sending him everything Yael had given me. He confirmed what I already knew. This was solid. He started preparing the initial filings, but I knew the legal process would take time. I wanted to confront Elizabeth sooner. I wanted to expose her lies to the family that had always believed her, the family she was still actively manipulating with her "Maureen abandoned me" narrative. The perfect opportunity arose, my Aunt Harmony's 55th birthday party. Harmony, Elizabeth's sister, was passive but loyal to family, and her birthday was always a big, well-attended affair. Elizabeth, 58, would be there, basking in the attention, no doubt spinning more tales of her struggles and her new chapter in the luxury condo. Olive, 29, was nervous. "Are you sure about this, Maureen? It's going to be a scene." "That's the point," I said, my voice calm but firm. "She's made a scene for years, just not one where she's the villain. It's time for the truth." I arrived at the party with Olive, carrying a large tote bag. The backyard was filled with familiar faces, most of whom I hadn't seen in years. There was Aunt Harmony, beaming, surrounded by well-wishers. And there, holding court by the patio, was Elizabeth, looking perfectly coiffed, laughing a little too loudly at something Scott Ford, 61, was saying. Bella Ford, 34, Scott's daughter, was nearby, chatting with some of my younger cousins. A wave of nausea hit me, quickly replaced by a surge of cold determination. This was it. I walked straight towards Elizabeth, Olive trailing a nervous step behind me. As I got closer, Elizabeth's eyes met mine. Her smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of shock, then quickly a practiced look of concern. "Maureen, what a surprise!" she exclaimed, her voice pitched to Carrie. "I had no idea you were coming. Are you here for Harmony's birthday?" I stopped a few feet from her, close enough for my voice to be heard by those around us, but not so loud as to cause an immediate commotion. My eyes locked with hers. "How much does betrayal cost these days, Mother?" I asked, my voice low and steady, cutting through the party chatter like a knife. Elizabeth's face went rigid. Scott, standing next to her, shifted uncomfortably. A few nearby conversations died down. "Maureen, what are you talking about?" Elizabeth feigned confusion, her eyes darting around, seeking allies. "You're being dramatic. Are you feeling all right? You know, you always were so sensitive." "Sensitive?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Is that what you call it when someone discovers you sold their childhood home for $7, then flipped it for $1.2 million, all while telling everyone I refused it? A gasp rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. Aunt Harmony looked aghast. Sophie Roberts, 27, another cousin who used to side with Elizabeth, stared at me, her mouth slightly open. Elizabeth's composure cracked, but only for a second. She quickly regrouped, her voice rising in pitch, becoming shrill. "This is ridiculous, Maureen, you're making things up. You're just bitter because you abandoned us, abandoned the house. I had no choice but to sell it." "You left me with nothing." "Nothing?" I retorted, pulling a stack of neatly organised packets from my tote bag. "Is that why you're living in a luxury condo now, bought with the proceeds of your fraud?" I started handing out the packets to the closest family members, to Aunt Harmony, to Sophie, to my other aunts and uncles. Each packet contained copies of the public property records showing the $7 sale and the $1.2 million flip, the forged waiver of ownership with my falsified digital signature, the transcript of Elizabeth's "Maureen doesn't matter" text, and the details from Yael Burns about the pre-deed wire transfers to Scott. "These are the receipts," I announced, my voice clear and strong. "The timestamps, the forged documents, the financial records. My mother, Elizabeth Dunn, conspired with Scott Ford to defraud me of my inheritance. She sold my home for $7, then he flipped it for $1.25 million, and she lied to all of you, claiming I refused it, to cover her tracks." A stunned silence fell over the patio. Family members, usually so quick to defend Elizabeth, were now poring over the documents, their faces a mixture of disbelief and horror. Sophie Roberts, who had been reading the forged waiver, suddenly let out a strangled cry. Her eyes, wide and tearful, fixed on a line at the bottom of the document. "My signature," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I signed this, as a witness, but I don't remember signing anything like this. I thought I was just signing a petition for Aunt Elizabeth's community garden project." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Sophie, unknowingly, had been complicit. Elizabeth had tricked her into signing a fraudulent document. Elizabeth's face contorted. The mask of the long-suffering victim shattered completely. Her eyes, usually so calculating, now blazed with pure, unadulterated rage. She lunged at me, her hand raised, aiming for my face. "You little bitch!" she shrieked, her voice raw with fury. "How dare you? How dare you come here and ruin everything?" Before her hand could connect, Scott grabbed her arm, pulling her back. But it was too late. The entire scene, Elizabeth's lunge, her contorted face, her furious shriek, was caught on multiple cell phones. Several family members, including Olive, had instinctively pulled out their phones and started recording the moment the confrontation began. The truth, raw and undeniable, was now out in the open, and it was going to be impossible for Elizabeth to spin this away. Elizabeth's lunge, her raw shriek of "you little bitch," was the final ugly act in her carefully constructed performance. Scott, 61, had pulled her back, but the damage was done. Multiple cell phones, instinctively raised by shocked family members, had captured the entire meltdown. The carefully curated image of the long-suffering matriarch, the victim of her ungrateful daughter, shattered into a million pieces. Within hours, the video of Elizabeth's outburst, coupled with the packets of evidence I'd handed out, went viral within our extended family and local community groups. My cousin Olive, 29, who had recorded it from a perfect angle, shared it widely, adding her own commentary about Elizabeth's years of manipulation. The comments section exploded. People who had always defended Elizabeth, who had bought into her narrative, were now questioning everything. Aunt Harmony, 55, Elizabeth's sister, called me the next morning, her voice shaking. "Maureen, I don't know what to say. I saw the documents. Sophie called me crying. She said Elizabeth tricked her into signing that waiver. She thought it was for a community garden. My own sister. How could she?" Harmony had always been passive, loyal to family, but this was a betrayal too deep for her to ignore. She promised to cooperate fully, to tell her side of the story. Sophie Roberts, 27, my sceptical cousin who used to side with Elizabeth, also reached out. Her voice was raw with tears and anger. "I can't believe I fell for it. She made me feel so bad for you, Maureen, always saying you were so ungrateful, and all this time, she was using me." Sophie's unwitting complicity in the forged waiver had hit her hard. She felt violated, used. She, too, vowed to help in any way she could. This was exactly what I had hoped for. The truth, finally, was out. Elizabeth's reign of manipulation was crumbling. Meanwhile, Zachary Young, my attorney, was moving fast. Armed with the new witness testimonies from Yael Burns, Aunt Harmony and Sophie, along with the viral video, he officially filed a comprehensive fraud suit against Elizabeth Dunn and Scott Ford. The complaint detailed the fraudulent transfer, the conspiracy, the forged waiver, and the pre-deed wire transfers. It was a brutal, detailed account of their scheme. Within days, the court issued an order, a temporary asset freeze on Elizabeth's and Scott's known accounts and properties. This meant Elizabeth's newly acquired luxury beach condo, the one she'd so proudly announced was finally ours, was now in jeopardy. The irony was not lost on me. Zachary also brought up something else. "Maureen, remember we talked about Bella Ford, Scott's daughter, being the buying agent on the $1.2 million flip?" "Yes," I said. Olive was going to try and talk to her. "Well, we pulled her commission records for that sale," Zachary continued. "She received a commission of over $30,000. That's a significant amount. Given her father's involvement and the highly suspicious nature of the initial $7 sale, it's highly unlikely she was unaware of the scheme. As a licensed real estate agent, she would have a professional and legal obligation to report such irregularities. Her failure to do so, and her direct profit from the fraudulent flip, makes her complicit." My blood ran cold. Bella, 34, had seemed so innocent, just a successful real estate agent. But she was in on it. She had directly benefited from the fraud. "So, what does this mean?" I asked Zachary. "It means we can escalate the suit," he replied, his voice firm. "We can amend the complaint to include Bella Ford as a co-conspirator. This strengthens our case significantly, proving a wider network of fraud and making it harder for Elizabeth or Scott to claim they acted alone, or that Bella was just an innocent agent." "Do it," I said without hesitation. "Include her. She knew. She profited." The amended suit was filed, adding Bella Ford to the list of defendants. The news spread quickly, even reaching the local news outlets, though they didn't name names yet, only hinting at a high-profile family property dispute involving alleged fraud. The pressure on Elizabeth, Scott, and now Bella was immense. Elizabeth tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was a mix of outrage and thinly veiled threats. "Maureen, you are going to regret this. You're ruining everything. This is a family matter, and you're making a spectacle." I smiled grimly. A spectacle was exactly what I wanted. She had made a spectacle of me for years, painting me as the villain. Now it was her turn. The asset freeze meant her dream condo was on hold, her ill-gotten gains locked down. The legal system was moving, slowly but surely, to dismantle her carefully constructed world. And with Bella now implicated, the web of deceit was unravelling for everyone to see. The fraud suit against Elizabeth Dunn, Scott Ford, and now Bella Ford moved swiftly through the courts. The viral video of Elizabeth's meltdown at Aunt Harmony's party, coupled with the detailed evidence Zachary Young had compiled, had created a public and legal firestorm. The asset freeze on Elizabeth's and Scott's accounts meant her dream condo was indefinitely on hold, a constant reminder of her unravelling scheme. I sat beside Zachary, 37, in the courtroom, feeling a strange mix of calm and anticipation. It had been weeks since the party, weeks of legal filings, depositions, and the slow, grinding machinery of justice. Elizabeth, 58, looked drawn, her usual polished facade replaced by a brittle anxiety. Scott, 61, looked grim, his slick confidence gone. Bella, 34, sat beside her father, pale and visibly nervous. The court hearings began. Zachary was methodical, presenting the evidence like a skilled surgeon. He started with the public records. The $7 sale, the immediate $1.2 million flip. Then came the forged waiver of ownership with my falsified digital signature. The forensic expert testified, confirming the forgery and tracing its origin to a device near Elizabeth's home. Next, the call recordings from my old phone back up. Elizabeth's voice, clear and chilling, discussing how to skirt legal loopholes and whether I, Maureen, had any claim if it's not technically sold to a third party but just transferred. The judge listened intently, his expression unreadable. Then came the testimonies. Yael Burns, 45, the real estate agent, took the stand. She calmly presented her meticulous records, detailing how Scott Ford received $115 million in wire payments before the $7 deed transfer from Elizabeth even took place. Her testimony was devastating, proving a premeditated conspiracy. Aunt Harmony, 55, testified next, her voice shaky but firm. She recounted Elizabeth's years of financial manoeuvring and her shock at seeing the evidence of the fraud. Then Sophie Roberts, 27, tearfully explained how Elizabeth had tricked her into signing the forged waiver, believing it was for a community garden petition. Her innocent complicity painted Elizabeth in an even darker light. Elizabeth's lawyer tried to discredit me, painting me as a bitter, estranged daughter seeking revenge. But Zachary expertly countered, using Elizabeth's own online posts about me refusing the home as further proof of her manipulative nature and intent to deceive. Mid-trial, Elizabeth's lawyer approached Zachary and me during a recess. "My client is willing to settle," he said, his voice low. "She's prepared to offer a significant sum to make this go away. We can keep this out of the public eye, avoid further embarrassment." Elizabeth herself came over, looking directly at me, her eyes pleading. For the first time I saw genuine fear in them, not just anger. "Maureen," she whispered, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "Please, we're family." "We can keep this in the family. Don't do this to me. Think of the family name." The family name. The same family name she had dragged through the mud with her lies and fraud. The same family she had tricked and manipulated. The same family she had abandoned me to years ago. I met her gaze, my own eyes cold and unwavering. "No," I said, my voice clear and firm. "There's nothing left to keep in the family. You broke that trust years ago. This isn't about money anymore, Elizabeth. This is about justice." Her face crumpled, the last vestiges of her charming facade shattered. She looked utterly defeated, exposed. It was the first time I had ever seen her truly vulnerable, truly broken. Not angry, not manipulative, just a woman who had lost control. The trial resumed. The defence presented a weak case, attempting to paint the $7 transfer as a legitimate gift, and the subsequent flip as Scott's independent business venture. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents, the call recordings, the wire transfer timestamps, and the compelling testimonies of Yael, Harmony, and Sophie. The judge, after hearing all the arguments, delivered his verdict. It was swift, decisive, and vindicating. Elizabeth Dunn was found liable for fraudulent transfer, conspiracy to commit fraud and forgery. She was ordered to pay substantial damages to me, covering not just the value of the house, but also punitive damages for the emotional distress and the costs of the legal battle. Her luxury condo, already under asset freeze, was officially seized to satisfy the judgment. It would be sold at auction. Scott Ford and Bella Ford were also found liable for conspiracy to commit fraud and were facing separate criminal charges, which would be pursued by the District Attorney's Office based on the evidence presented in this civil trial. Their real estate licenses were immediately suspended. A wave of relief washed over me, so profound it almost buckled my knees. It wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about seeing the truth prevail, about Elizabeth finally facing consequences for her actions. As I walked out of the courtroom, Zachary by my side, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. The weight of her manipulation, the constant need to justify myself, was gone. Later that week, Zachary called me. "The condo is going up for auction next month," he said. "It's part of the assets seized to satisfy the judgment. You have the right to bid, of course, but it will be a public auction." A thought, a mischievous, deeply satisfying thought sparked in my mind. Elizabeth's dream condo, the one she'd proudly declared was finally ours. "I'll be there," I told Zachary, "and I'm going to bid on it." Weeks later, the auction for Elizabeth's seized condo took place. I attended anonymously, bidding through an agent. The bidding was fierce, but I held my ground. When the hammer finally fell, I closed my hand around a small, cold metal object. A key. The winning bid was mine. Elizabeth's new chapter was now my new chapter. The key felt surprisingly heavy in my palm. It wasn't just a piece of metal. It was the culmination of years of quiet suffering, months of relentless pursuit, and the final, undeniable proof that I had reclaimed what was mine. Not just the house, but my voice, my truth, and my peace. A few weeks after the auction, I drove to the coast, Olive, 29, riding shotgun. The ocean air, salty and fresh, filled the car as we got closer to the address. Elizabeth's dream condo, seized to satisfy the judgment against her, was now mine. The legal battles were over, the court orders finalised. Elizabeth, 58, was left with nothing but her shattered reputation and the consequences of her fraud. Scott, 61, and Bella, 34, were facing their own legal battles, their real estate licenses suspended, their names tarnished. We pulled up to the building, a sleek modern structure overlooking the vast expanse of the Atlantic. My heart beat a steady rhythm, not of anger, but of quiet triumph. I unlocked the heavy front door, the click echoing in the silence. The condo was empty, stripped bare, no furniture, no personal touches. Just white walls, gleaming floors, and the breathtaking view of the ocean from the expansive balcony. It was a blank canvas, devoid of Elizabeth's toxic energy. "Wow," Olive breathed, stepping onto the balcony. "It's incredible." I walked through the rooms, a small smile playing on my lips. This wasn't the childhood home, but it was a symbol, a tangible representation of justice served. I envisioned it filled with blues and whites, echoing the ocean outside. A calm, peaceful space. Over the next few days, I did just that. I bought new furniture, simple and clean. I painted the walls soft blues, hung sheer white curtains that billowed in the sea breeze. I placed a small scented candle on the windowsill overlooking the ocean, its gentle flame flickering, a beacon of new beginnings. As I watched the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues, I reflected on the journey. It wasn't about revenge. Not until she made it personal, until she tried to erase me, to profit from my past, and then lie about it to everyone. But then it became justice. It became about reclaiming my narrative, about showing the family and myself that her manipulation didn't define me. The consequences for Elizabeth were far-reaching. Sophie Roberts, 27, who had unknowingly signed the forged waiver, had completely cut ties. Her family, once staunch defenders of Elizabeth, had ostracised her, disgusted by her actions and her willingness to trick even her own relatives. Aunt Harmony, 55, while still my mother's sister, maintained a strict distance. her loyalty to Elizabeth irrevocably broken. The family, once so easily swayed by Elizabeth's victim narrative, now saw her for what she was. Bella Ford, 34, had tried to reach out a few times, sending texts and emails, attempting to apologise, to explain her involvement. I blocked her. There was nothing to explain. She was a real estate agent who knew the law, and she chose to profit from fraud. Her actions, like her father's, were a choice. My own life across the country felt lighter, freer. The constant hum of Elizabeth's potential manipulations, the low-level anxiety she'd instilled in me, had finally dissipated. I could breathe, I could build, let her find her own shelter this time. I've reclaimed mine.